What you do is every time you're getting blown the fuck out on the specific facts, you go in this big interruption tirade and you spurk out and you're like, you can't control yourself because you know that you're incapable of winning a debate on even platform. That's why you have your audience right now feeding you shit. That's what you do. I get it. Like, I totally understand. You're an army of 6,000 that are all dog shit. I'm an army of one that crushes you constantly. I assume you're going to rage quit and fucking blacklist me again at the end of this, as is your want. But what you can see is I'm pointing to specific things and you just spurg out and talk about all of this, blah, 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 blah.
Wait, hold on, Rob. You understand that I'm saying that
it's always this.
How is it supposed to affect the election? It was an ICA. You just said it. To the presidential daily briefings. You dipshit. You just tried to trap me.
ICA report.
No, the whole point of that email was to prove that the Hillary Clinton, why do you say alleged? It's more propaganda. That's not an allegation. You don't have an appendix from the Durham report, but you keep calling the appendix from the Durham report. It's the shitty. That's why he's asking for a second ICA. You're trying to compare that ICA a million bullshit investigations, Rob. The whole point is to make you think the theory that you're about to say, Rob. How are you so stupid? No, that should have been used and everything should be investigated. They didn't even say that it came from Oppo Research. Stand that right now, it does matter. It's fake. You're the one saying, you're saying that all of it should have been treated equally. It ended up becoming that. They didn't go there operating on the assumption that they were going to get a Russian. They wouldn't have to believe that's the case. They're investigating. I am gay.
Is Obama guilty of lawfare, and is the Trump administration lying about the details?
Gotcha. Sounds good.
Okay. So all right, we'll start with openings, and Rob, if you want to kick us off, then we'll go to Destiny.
All right, so the topic's about lawfare, primarily from Russiagate. Even if small claims can be disputed, the prompt applies. Either there was lawfare or there's not. So it'll be sufficient to prove that there was lawfare that I win the prompt. For the purposes of lawfare, we'll use the definition of legal action to cause problems for an opponent, spying on, investigating, etc. Your opponents would consider lawfare. Lawfare was certainly used against Trump and his team, both during the lead up of the 2016 election and during his first term, also afterwards, but that's a debate for another day. All of these examples would be Carter Page, the FISA warrants, Papadopoulos, Flynn, the mistreatment of them compared to Hillary's team, who at one point paid a suspected Russian spy named Igor Dashchenko. There was no investigation into her compared to the investigation into Trump, which shows the two-tiered system in lawfare. Hillary's team concocted the Russia collusion story, and Obama and the CIA and FBI all knew it. The ICA never found that Russia interfered to help Trump until after Obama ordered a new report personally. Leaks to the press started almost immediately that the ICA had found that Russia interfered to help Trump. In fact, that was, I believe, the same day the Washington Post broke a story that said the ICA concluded that Russia interfered to help Trump, although previously that had never been found by any ICA, and it was only the day after Obama ordered a new review. There's shoddy evidence that was previously left out to make this assertion. And there's strong evidence to the contrary left out of the ICA that shows that actually they were not interfering to help Trump. And in fact, they could have did more if they were. And they had more evidence about Hillary they could have released if they were trying to hurt her and to help Trump. The claim that Russia interfered to help Trump is keystone in allowing the media and the intel agencies to show America that there was a necessity for a constant investigation into Trump-Russia throughout his first term. There was never any crime shown between Trump or his team illegally taking action with Russia to affect the 2016 election. Now, although we don't have smoking gun evidence that Obama is directly involved, the circumstantial evidence is very convincing. And lastly, the prompt should not mean that Obama is just one man. If we could prove that his administration and the people working under him to benefit his party used lawfare against Trump, that should be sufficient to win. The buck stops with Obama. There was clear lawfare. Should be an easy debate to win.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. And Destiny.
I think that, unfortunately, the intelligence community in the United States is not perfect. I think there probably are strong arguments that the IC probably did help a candidate to win the 2016 election. I think that if anybody is an honest actor and they do a simple survey of what happened, then the answer would be that the FBI lent way too much support to Donald Trump to win, despite the fact that we're going to spend the majority of this debate talking about the Steele dossier, Crossfire Hurricane, Carter Page, all of these investigations. I think it is noteworthy that none of these investigations were announced publicly until after the election happened, because Comey stated that he didn't want to violate the Hatch Act, although Comey multiple times said that he wanted to talk about the Hillary Clinton email investigation, which he did at 3 separate occasions occasions when he talked about opening it, when he gave, outside of what would be the ordinary process, his recommendations to not file charges while also excoriating Hillary Clinton and her State Department for their use of an email server, in a move that shocked Loretta Lynch, that he probably never should have done, and then for him announcing that they were opening the investigation again. Hillary Clinton's email topic dominated for 6 months the news cycle in the United States regarding the election. And it's important to know the only reason why we even have this investigation, the only reason why it's dominating the news cycle, is because the Russian GRU team that adopted the moniker Guccifer 2.0 hacked into the DNC, DCCC email servers and then started timely leaks of it in order to do optimal damage to Hillary Clinton's campaign. We can go back and forth between all of these smaller points. There's going to be a lot of things that Rob says. They just rely on a misreading or lacking the context of or lacking any evidence to support the statements underneath them. For instance, I'm sure we'll go through these ICA statements. The fact that Obama ordered any of these is not true. The fact that the second ICA statement issued in January as having significantly different findings than the one in September is not true. All of these things just rely on you going by what Tulsi Gabbard says is in the leaks that she makes and not actually reading the leaks themselves. But thankfully, I had nothing to do last night except for read 200 or 300 pages of original source material. So we're ready to go over all these leaks. Yeah.
All right. Rob, I will let you start where you want. I would assume you guys would want to start with like 2016 and Carter Page and things like that, but you're fair to.
So you accept?
Well, let me give my impression of the ICA stuff, because there's a huge disagreement here. So Tulsi Gabbard's leaks on the whole Russiagate thing is that somehow these leaks on this second ICA, this intelligence community assessment, somehow proved that Obama ordered some new ICA thing that was in stark contrast to the prior ICA findings. This is simply not true. The ICA findings on the second report more or less echo things that were in the first report. Some stuff is now at a higher confidence because there's been more time to research. And what's more important, all the ICA findings ended up being true. They are true. Nothing's been discredited from that. It is obvious that there was one party, there was one person that was targeted by the Russian hackers, and it was the DNC, it was the DCCC. We know that. We saw the leaks, we saw the hacks. So I have no idea how we can even accuse those things of being false. What evidence is there that Obama caused a significant divergence in what the intelligence community assessment already was on all these things?
First off, the ICA disclosures that we see, particularly from Tulsi with the Durham Annex and everything, could be totally irrelevant to this debate as to whether or not the question that the Obama team used lawfare against Trump. They clearly did. I could concede the entirety of Tulsi Gabbard's claims being untrue, and it wouldn't change that fact. But to speak on the ICA reports, if you want right now, the problem isn't that the majority of it wasn't found to be accurate. The problem was the specific claim that the ICA found that Russia was interfering to help Trump. Now, that claim is going to be important because that was necessary to get the public on board and to give the FBI and later the Mueller team the excuse for why they had to investigate Trump despite the very flimsy evidence for the opening of the investigation and the continuing of the tools they used, which we would later see would be corrupt, as in to corrupt Carter Page FISA warrants. They needed that claim that Russia didn't just interfere to mess with our system like they always do, but they actually interfered to help Donald Trump. Those are the claims that the Tulsi Gabbard files from the Durham Annex are releasing, and we can see that there was incredible discrepancies from how this ICA was put together compared to how normally the best standards and practices of the FBI are, up to including at least 2 of the 5 people working under Brennan, who was instrumental in putting together this ICA and this specific claim, saying that they disagreed with a lot of the additions that were made in there, particularly the things that were directly referencing the evidence that Russia interfered to help Trump. But since you read it and you're going to accuse me of not reading it, can you tell me the 4 pieces of evidence that were used that the Durham Annex showed that the ICA used to say that Russia interfered to help Trump?
I don't believe that those pieces of evidence were declassified.
No, it's not true. We now see through the Durham Annex that they were.
What is your impression of what those 4 things were?
So there were only 4 pieces of evidence that the Durham Annex says that were actually used to claim that Russia interfered to help Trump. And let me be clear so that we're not 2 ships crossing. You're absolutely right that the rest of the ICA report, pretty much everyone agrees, is pretty legit. Russia did interfere. They want to meddle in our systems, etc. It was that key claim that is the keystone to going after Trump with these investigations, that they interfered to help Trump, that there's a discrepancy.
Okay, well, before we go into this, do you agree that Russia intervened aggressively, far more against Hillary Clinton than against Donald Trump?
Yes. At least
So
based
you
on
agree that they did more to help. You agree that they did more to help Trump win than Hillary Clinton, correct?
It's not that. It's not that. That wasn't the intent. What happened was that there was just more information out there because of the carelessness of Hillary Clinton and the fact that she's been in office so long. And they just assumed that Hillary Clinton was going to win, just like James Comey, just like everyone else, the New York Times, almost everyone in this country and around the world assumed because of the great institutional advantages that Hillary is going to win. So they thought it was insurmountable, basically, and that Hillary is going to win. So the entire intent was to cause distrust with the way that our elections are proffered. So it was never about picking or choosing. The evidence is overwhelming that they didn't like Trump either. They thought there would be a horse apiece, that both the presidents would be bad for Russia and wouldn't help relations. There was some evidence that suggested that actually they preferred Hillary Clinton because they found her to be predictable and would carry on the legacy of Barack Obama, whereas Trump was seen as sort of a wild card and they weren't sure how to regulate.
Wasn't the legacy of Barack Obama the murdering of Gaddafi in Libya, the Syrian refugee crisis that threw Russia into disarray, the intrusions against Russia's plans in the Middle East, as opposed to Bush, who was more cooperative in the war on terror? How could you possibly say they would prefer the Obama?
No, the legacy,
the red line statements, like
right, the red line that he gave up on, right? You're right, and the fact that they were able to invade.
Do you think that Obama's foreign policy was seen as nice by Putin? Do you think that
it was seen as predictable, right? They knew exactly how far they could push the line. And that's why they were able to invade Ukraine and Crimea in 2014 under Obama. That's why they didn't do it in 4 years under Trump. That's why they were able to call the bluff on Obama's Syria red line statement. They basically had
they call the bluff. There's no evidence that they've continued to strike into Ukraine under Trump. They've escalated attacks under Trump. There's zero evidence to imply that they wouldn't have invaded under Trump. There's no reason to think that they wouldn't have done that. They continued to escalate attacks when Trump was president.
They didn't escalate under Trump's first term.
Sure, they did. They were still funding the civil war in the southeast. It continued to rage on. For the first time, Russian troops were present in Ukraine and confirmed, I think, under Trump's first term. So there's no evidence whatsoever. There's no reason to believe why they wouldn't have invaded under Trump. They probably would have. Right?
The entire argument and what the report suggests is that actually they found Hillary to be predictable. It's not even so much. It's sort of like the idea of business.
What do they find? What do they say that? Wait. What is the evidence that they found Hillary predictable and therefore could have preferred her?
I will find it for you. I will find it for you in a minute. First, I want to go back to this idea of the four pieces of evidence that were suggested in both the classified annex and then in the formal part of the ICA. The fourth part is, it was said in the annex, was the Steele dossier. You agree with that?
No. The Steele dossier was not used for the ICA assessments in January. That's not true.
It was actually included in the annex. You disagree?
It was included in the annex, but that was the only part that it was included in.
That's
Comey
true.
Pushed for the include, but it wasn't referenced. It wasn't used. The CIA and nobody else used or built upon that for their findings for the ICA statements relating to whether or not Russia had a preference for a particular leader or whether or not any of the findings of that ICA would have changed. It was simply sectioned off. It was quarantined off in the annex because Comey fought hard because he wanted to include it, and nobody else in the ICA wanted it there.
If it wasn't used by anyone, why would Comey put it there?
Comey wanted it because Comey said that Obama had demanded that they turn over every single thing that they had in relationship to the Russia campaign interference stuff and everything else, and because they were also going to be briefing the incoming President Trump on these things, and they weren't sure if Trump knew anything about the Steele dossier, so Comey fought really hard to include it. Initially, he wanted to weave the text through the report of the ICA, but everybody else pushed back on him because the rest of the intelligence community didn't like it. They didn't think it was good material, so they basically quarantined it off with a huge warning, this is unverified, unvetted in the January ICA that was published.
Okay, so just to be clear, your one reason that Comey insisted on including this is he was just following orders that everything had to do with Russia involving the 2016 election should be included.
Those are Comey's statements himself, and they are reiterated in the Senate Judiciary report on this. So, yes, do you believe something different?
Yes, I think if that would be the case, then there would be strong evidence if there was evidence exonerating, or I don't want to say exonerating, evidence that went the other way, that were potential other conclusions, such as evidence that they had of things that Hillary Clinton may have been doing, emails, or evidence they had of actual aggression that Russia used against Trump, then that would have been included in the ICA, correct? If they were mandated to include everything, right? They wouldn't have selectively let stuff out then.
Wait, what do you think they selectively left out?
For example, they didn't include that there were releases about Colin Powell, email releases they got from Colin Powell saying that basically Colin Powell thought that Trump was a piece of shit. Then there were a bunch of emails that Russia had that were things that
what is that? What do statements from Colin Powell have to do with foreign election interference? That's what this ICA was tasked with.
The ICA was tasked with determining what Russia did to meddle and what their motivations were, correct?
That's my understanding, basically.
Okay,
yeah.
so then all
And how to
evidence,
deal with that in the future, kind of.
all evidence to come to not just one preferred conclusion, that is, they did it to help Trump. They should include, Obama gave them a mandate to include everything that could possibly be what their motivation was and evidence that they interfered, correct? That's your argument.
No, not everything that could possibly be, but what the ultimate assessment was of the intelligence community for what they were ruling on. This is why that all the other IC people didn't want the Steele dossier included, because none of them used it. Even the FBI didn't in their overall assessment. But Comey thought it was important to include it in some section or in some way because he thought that it was a huge thing that was being spoken about behind the scenes, and he wasn't sure if Trump had been briefed on it at all. But this is why you acknowledge then that the dossier was not relied upon for any factual determining anything in the ICA. It was just sectioned off. It was just quarantined off in the annex. It wasn't sourced anywhere, cited anywhere. It wasn't used to build upon any findings in the ICA.
But the problem is that there were certain people that had access to that annex and could see that information to help include what their judgment would be. In fact, when Brennan was specifically...
Wait, what do you mean certain people?
There were, I think, the people at the CIA, I think there were people at the FBI and a couple other agencies.
No, that's
so
not
no
true.
one. Okay, so then who had access to the annex? Just Comey? He was the only one who saw it?
No, the annex was part of the final ICA that was put together and presented to Obama, and then I think in the future to Trump if he got the same ICA presentation.
Yeah, but the argument was
that ICA was put together to present as part of the presidential, the PBD or whatever, the presidential daily briefing PDB.
Let's make sure we're on the same track here, right? My understanding is that all of the intel groups that worked on the ICA got to see the body of the ICA, correct? But only a select few got to see the sort of annex, which is where the Steele dossier was included.
I mean, the top line cabinet people would have had to have signed off on the dossier, yes. But I don't understand they would have seen that included in the annex, yeah.
Okay, so the point is, right, that there
but that doesn't mean that the ICA was built, anything in the ICA wasn't built off of stuff from the dossier.
Well, there was stuff
in the ICA that, yeah.
Look, I'm actually, like, the Steele dossier, believe it or not, would be the strongest evidence that Russia interfered to help Trump, right? So I don't think it's helping your case to say, like, what didn't...
Wait, wouldn't the strongest evidence be the fact that they hacked the DNC and they hacked the DCCC email servers?
No, that doesn't speak to
timely leaks of that?
That doesn't speak to their motivation as to whether or not they were trying to help Trump or not. It speaks to their motivation that they were getting access to everything they could to interfere in our system. But the motivation of specifically helping Trump was nothing that was ever determined prior to December 8th. We'll get to this in a second.
So what didn't Putin expressing a preference for Donald Trump as a leader, leaking explicitly things that are anti-Hillary Clinton, and the fact that all the Mueller indictments, investigations, and the Internet Research Agency, all of them were on attacks against Clinton. That's just all coincidence? They were just trying to
Okay, if that's all true, why was none of that included in the ICA? Why didn't they include anything about the Internet Research Agency or any of that nature? They included three pieces. They didn't.
Hold on. Not only, I believe they did, because I think that Prigozhin, is mentioned in the ICA as being a potential funder for, I don't know if they say Internet Research Agency by name, but I think that they say that there were. I don't know if the investigation, because it was just the ICA for what they currently had. I think that deep into the investigation didn't happen until Mueller got his hands on things, but I think they named Prigozhin as being one of the oligarchical funders of some of the foreign propaganda that came out of that ICA, which ended up being the Internet Research Agency.
I'm not sure.
There's another reason why they get silly to attack the ICA, because everything that was in the ICA was true. So attacking this as some like Obama propaganda piece, every single thing in there is true. We now know is even more true than we knew before.
It's not true, right? What we're talking about is when the ICA was... So again, we're getting off track from the 3 points that were any evidence that was given in the ICA that said that the motivation of Russia was to help Trump. All you're saying is, yeah, but they hacked Hillary, right? But that doesn't speak to their motivation, right? And so... We'll go back to this. The timeline real quick was, you acknowledge this, that December 8th, it wasn't officially an intelligence community assessment, but there was an intelligence assessment that was given to Barack Obama that basically said, and this is the first Tulsi file that was released, Russia didn't have effects in cyber hacking of our election infrastructure. You're aware of this, 100-something page document that Tulsi releases?
Yeah, it's a smorgasbord of random things. It includes both of the ICAs and a bunch of random emails. Yeah, what about it?
Okay, so that said, that was being presented to Obama in December 8th, 2016. And basically nowhere in that report does it say that the motivation of Russia was to help Trump win. There is nowhere that I could find anywhere prior to December 8th that there was any intelligence assessment ever in the United States that said that Russia's motivation was anything other than them monkeying with our election systems to sow distrust. None of it ever said that they were interfering to help Donald Trump. Can you provide me any evidence to the contrary?
I don't think they had reached that assessment yet. But I mean, it was that ICA that you're talking about came out on September 9th, right?
Correct.
So there was months of more intelligence gathering before the future one that would be released in January came out. So we wouldn't expect the one in January to be the exact same. No?
So just so we're clear, so we're both on the same page prior to December 8th. Then this report comes out December 8th. Obama immediately the next day calls a meeting, and it has like, you know, all the characters, Comey, Clapper, all these people. And Clapper ends up releasing an email after that meeting saying, hey, Obama's ordered us to do a new ICA. You agree with this?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think there was ever. I think that there was. I believe that the first ICA that we talk about comes out on September of 2016. And then I think eventually there is a big meeting because Obama wants to be able to release something relating to all of the attacks that Russia had done on our election, because it was probably the worst year where we've ever had foreign intrusion. And Obama wants the ICA or wants the intelligence community to put out some kind of statement, just like detailing like what had happened. And then all of the intelligence community cabinet heads and everybody else meets, and they, you know, and then they.
Okay, so I think you're
ICA.
You're functionally wrong. According to a DNI files, I could send you this on page 7. It says, quote, after the meeting, according to the Office of Director of National Intelligence, Clapper's executive assistant emailed intelligence community leaders, tasking them to create a new intelligence community assessment per the president's request that detailed the tools Moscow used and the actions it took to influence the 2016 election. Quote, ODNI will lead this effort with participation of CIA, FBI, NSA, and DHS. That was December 9th. So you're factually incorrect.
Correct. But what you're saying... No.
Yes.
When do you think, when they say put together a new thing, what do you think new thing? Do you think that they just saw one and they want a new one put together right now? They're just saying we want to put together one. We want to put together one.
No, that's
not like they showed him one and he didn't like it and now they want to do a new one.
That's not true. The December 8th briefing that was given to him was delayed to be released to public, and Obama called a meeting the next day and said, I want you all to put together a new thing. Now, it strongly suggests what happened was...
but if you read, you mentioned a 112-page thing, 170-page thing linked by Tulsi Gabbard. There is no December 8th ICA. That's not true. I've never seen that. Or can you show me that?
Yes, I'll see if I can find the link to that. So, let's see. The December 8th report. Let's see if I control F it here. Maybe if I type December.
The only two ICA are the September 12th, 2016 ICA, and then there is the January 6th ICA from 2017.
Let's see.
For chat, we will try to take questions towards the end if we have time. So if you guys put them in super chats or through the tips link and pinned at the top of chat, we'll try to get to those towards the end of stream if as long as we have time.
I believe that the reason why Obama wanted to test that as well is because I think during that meeting or the day before, because on December 7th, after the election, the talking points that had been prepared for Clapper were saying that the U.S., because now the U.S. Intelligence Committee had high confidence in its attribution of the intrusions into the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC networks, based on the forensic evidence identified by a private cyber firm and the IC's review and understanding of cyber activities by the Russian government. I don't believe in the September ICA. I don't think they had high confidence that Guccifer 2.0 was the GRU. They didn't know that, they didn't have high confidence that that was Russian yet. But by the time December had rolled around, they did have high confidence. That was presented to Obama. Once Obama heard that, he was like, okay, well, you guys should put together a new ICA, but you're presenting this, and I know that some headlines have presented this as though he was given some information on the 8th, and he was like, no, I want something different on the 9th. But that new ICA was not in response to getting one he didn't like. It was just he wanted a new ICA put together, now with the updated intelligence.
No, so he did receive a report December 8th. Give me 1 second. I'll bring it up here. Let's see. So this is approved for release by the DNI on July 17, 2025. Let's see. This was sent.
Wait, what?
This was
July 17th, 2025?
This was approved. It was approved for release, so it was classified until that point on July 2025. This is pulled from the December PPD draft for the president, December 8th, 2016. Cyber manipulation of U.S. election infrastructure to remain a challenge. In this, it says, quote, on page 1, let me see, bring it up. We have low to moderate confidence in Russia government's involvement because of our uncertainty about its utility for a state actor, a lack of observed effects from low-profile operation, and the actor's use of lack of obfuscation techniques, which included substantial overlap with criminal actors using similar targeting patterns and tactics. The activities did coincide with high-profile Russia cyber-enabled data leaks during the election, which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates. In other words, the conclusion, again, you're factually incorrect. This was sent to Obama on December 8th. And in this, they assessed that the motivation was, and I quote, the undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates. So Obama immediately.
So what you're reading is not, so number one, what you're reading is not an ICA. Number one,
that.
that's just
I
a briefing.
That's a
Sure, but
Correct.
we're talking about ICA. So now you've gone down to the president's daily briefing. So one, that's not an ICA. Two, you're just reading the second bullet point from a bunch of random things that are brought up, or not random, but a bunch of things that are brought up. You read the low to moderate confidence in the Russian government's involvement because of uncertainty about its utility for state actor. Above that, they bring up the idea that there is a possible Russian government-affiliated cyber actors extracting voter data from Illinois' Board of Elections. I think there's several other points in here about this, but none of this has to do, the goal of this was not assessing whether or not Russia wanted to attack or what the motivations of Putin were. The title of this briefing was Cyber Manipulation of U.S. Election Infrastructure to Remain a Challenge. That's what this briefing was about. And then after Obama got this briefing, he wanted a more comprehensive intelligence community assessment done rather than just a president daily briefing. He wanted all of the intelligence communities to come together and do their research and put together what they thought was the strongest version of what actually happened.
So again, up until this point, there was no confirmation that Russia or any claim whatsoever made by an intelligence community that said that Russia interfered to help Trump as part of their motivation. Second, I admitted when I started
They hadn't been tasked with exploring that
Come
yet.
on, please. I let you talk. Secondly, I didn't say this was an intelligence.
Well, do you acknowledge that just on the first point? They weren't tasked with exploring that yet, right?
No, of course they were.
That's what Obama tasked them to explore, right? He
So
didn't tell them, I need you to make this up. He just said, can you put together what we have on this?
So your argument is the intelligence community that was putting ICAs together in September was never trying to look into the motivation. They were never tasked with that. That our intelligence community.
No, I'm sure they were looking for it, but they
Right.
didn't have it at that point.
Okay, so then you're factually, again, incorrect when you say they weren't tasked with that prior. Of course they were tasked with trying to find the motivations of the actors they think are interfering in our country. So that's
No, I'm saying
nonsensical.
tasked during the president's daily briefing. That's not what they were tasked with.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter if the president directly tells them. They understand implicitly that's their job. Now, I never said this was an ICA. I said it was sort of an intelligence briefing that was given that the president got. He gets this on the 8th. He says that it shouldn't be released publicly. And instead, he calls this meeting and immediately says, hey, we want an assessment, this overarching assessment, and doesn't release this. Again, it doesn't matter if the primary intent of this was to look at whether or not, and it's basically saying the intent, what they find out is Russia didn't affect the election results through cyber effects and hacking election infrastructure. But it does speak to the motivation.
Which we already know, yeah.
Right, but it does speak to the motivation. It says that the motivation that this intelligence assessment's concluding, or this intelligence briefing is concluding, is that they were trying to cause psychological effects such as undermining the credibility of the election process. So then the next day,
No, that's not true. There's nothing in here that says that. You're incorrect. That's not what they're assessing in this.
And I'm quoting, the activities did coincide with high-profile Russia cyber-enabled data leaks during the election, which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects, such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates. Not to help
Correct.
Donald Trump
So
win.
if you actually, yeah, I understand. So if you actually read any of the earlier ICAs, I read both of them.
So
The
no.
reason why they have that included in there is because the article, the PBD that you're reading, or the president's daily briefing that you're reading, is about cyber manipulation and whether or not they were trying to literally flip the vote tallies to pick one winner or another. One of the things that the ICA, the prior ICA, had been tasked with is figuring out, do we think that Russia has the capability to do this? And they said, no, we don't. But we do think that what they can do is they can engage in, even if they're successful in a small scale at changing one county or something, that in and of itself would be enough to undermine public confidence. That's the psychological warfare that they're talking about. They're not talking about the motivations here. They're just talking about what the goal might be for any type of individual election-related system hack. If you want, I can source that directly from one of the earlier ICAs. If you give me 2 seconds, I can find that for you.
You can find it. I don't
But it has
disagree
nothing-
with. I've read. I don't disagree. What I'm saying is the motivations through Russia election hacking activities from 2012, 2008. If you read any of the ICAs back then, they're always talking about how the entire goal of Russia is just to meddle with.
We're not talking about 2012 to 2028. They also say that 2016 was the most extreme and the most outlandish that Russia has ever attacked our system.
So
2012 to
nonetheless,
20,
without
it's not irrelevant.
you interfering all the time, so what I'm saying is they never came to the conclusion that the motivation was to help one candidate over the other. They never said that.
But they
Obama
did.
That's
In
not
January
true.
6th, they did.
Is this just going to be that you have to spurg out and interrupt the whole time?
Well, I just need you to not lie. If we can ask for a judge ruling on this if you want, but when they say psychological tactics, that's not talking about whether or not they wanted to broadly attack our system or favor one candidate or another. It's talking about the nature of the election attack that they were engaged in. And the nature of that attack wasn't to try to flip all the votes. It was to try to undermine the faith in the particular voting system. That would be the type of election attack that they would launch. This doesn't say whether or not they prefer one candidate or another candidate.
I disagree with you. Let's read what it says specifically right before it says that, okay? It says, I'm going to pause. This is a time for you to interrupt, like on cue. You ready? And I'll pause when I want your answer. You ready? The activities did coincide with high-profile Russian cyber-enabled data leaks during the election. Pause. What do you think they mean by that?
Wait, I'm sorry, read that again for me.
The activities did coincide with high-profile Russian cyber-enabled data leaks during the election. What do you think they're referencing there?
The DCCC, DNC leaks?
Okay, and it says, and then comma, which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects, such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates. In other words, it's saying that both of these things, the leaking of the WikiLeaks shit and stuff like that, and this, weren't done to affect one candidate or the other. It was to undermine the process and both candidates. Would you like to admit that you're wrong about this?
No, you're not understanding it. I can read you from a prior PBD, or we can go through as many of these as you want. So, in the one for the one for September 14th.
What does that have to do with what
because
I just
read? Because the subject matter here is not whether they prefer one or another. It's what is the goal of the hack.
Just said
right?
what the
So
goal
on the one
was.
for September 14th, cyber threats to U.S. elections unlikely to alter voting outcomes. We assess that foreign adversaries do not have the capability to covertly overturn the vote outcome of the coming U.S. presidential election by executing cyber attacks on election infrastructure. These adversaries, most notably Russia, can conduct cyber operations against election infrastructure to undermine the credibility of the process and weaken the perceived legitimacy of the winning candidate. Okay, so what they're tasked with finding here is if they were to attack our voting systems, what would the goal of the attack be? Would it be to change the winner from one to another, or would it just be to undermine the process? And when they're looking at their types of attacks that they can do against the voting infrastructure, they're saying that they can do small attacks, but it's not going to be ones to like hack or rig the whole election. It would be to undermine the process itself. But they're not tasked with figuring out why is he trying to favor Trump? Is he trying to favor Hillary? Or is he trying to just favor chaos in general? This is just tasked with what is the capability of their attacks on the election infrastructure.
That's not true. So although you might be reading something from September that says that, you're ignoring the context and the specific wording that's being used in this December 8th briefing. Now, I'll remind you that it is talking specifically about the leaks. And yes, they are tasked with finding the motivations. It's not just saying, well, when it comes to hacking voter rolls, it's just to mess with the system. The mess with the system part is the motivation. And the motivation it says here, let me finish, the motivation that it says here when it comes to getting into voting rolls and shit like that, and I'm quoting, high-profile Russia cyber-enabled data leaks were to, quote, intended to cause psychological effects such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates. Nowhere did it ever say that it was to prefer Donald Trump. Will you concede that?
Okay. I will concede this entire point to you. If every single intelligence agency was tasked with this, if you can give me one example from a credible person saying that Obama changed their conclusion that Putin favored one candidate or the other, has any evidence whatsoever been released of that? Because what you're saying is that the entire intelligence community saw one thing, and this singular meeting with every cabinet level official related to the intelligence community on December 8th, December 9th, that Obama changed their direction there. Is there a single shred of evidence relating to that?
First off, will you concede that in order for some sort of conspiracy or something like that to occur, you wouldn't need someone admitting it to be able to say that it occurred?
I just need give me a single shred of evidence.
I will give you evidence.
Give me the strongest piece of evidence you have. The one, don't say a bunch of random things and then say, oh, here's wrong. Give me the strongest piece of evidence you have for that.
Okay. There were only three things that the ICA used to say that Russia preferred Trump, and all three of them were so low confidence that they'd been known about prior and weren't included in prior ICAs. And all of a sudden, Brennan directly gets involved, and now they are included.
How is that evidence of Obama telling Brennan to do anything? Do we have any evidence whatsoever of that?
What it shows is it's clear that prior to December 9th, that the ICA or that the intelligence community was like, yeah, we're not ruling the motivation was this. Obama calls this meeting. Within that day, there were leaks to the Washington Post that said that the intelligence community assessment would say that Russia wanted Trump to win. And in addition to that, we then see all this shady shit being included.
Wait, hold on. Is that what those leaks said? Is that what the leaks to the... According to who?
What leaks? The Washington Post leak? You want me to read it?
Yeah. What was that
Okay.
Washington Post article?
Sure.
Yeah.
So December 9th, Obama reorders this, as we already read, which you said didn't occur. We proved that that was the case. Just like you said that
No,
this
we
briefing...
said no. You said reorders it. I'm sorry. We'll relitigate as much as you want. Your claim is that there was an ICA that was given. Now you've backtracked to saying, there was a President Daily briefing that was given,
never
and now
said
you
it was
ordered
an
a new
ICA.
thing. I agree with that. That was my original thing. So if you've come to my position, that's fine. There was no
That's
new
bullshit.
ICA issue. There are only two that we're talking about. So we agree that there's two. That's fine. Okay. So now read me this Washington Post
bullshit.
article.
You relitigating. I never said it was an ICA. I specifically said it wasn't an ICA.
That's what we were arguing over initially.
That's not true.
Oh, so you were
And
saying that the claim was that Obama ordered an ICA after getting a presidential daily briefing?
Correct.
What's the big deal about that then? There's nothing noteworthy. Okay, well then fine. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing noteworthy about
what
that.
I was
though.
saying
So
was
it's
that
not
the
worth
evidence,
mentioning. Yeah.
the evidence that was going to be released public, whether or not it was an ICA or just an intelligence briefing that was going to be released public, that showed that the motivations weren't for Russia to help Trump, was something that was then stymied. Then the next day, Trump said, Obama said, I want a new ICA. And within that day, leaks to the Washington Post started. Yes. Washington Post story. Quote, this is from December 9th, the same day. By the way, you originally said that Obama didn't order this on December 9th. That was proven not to be true.
I never said
you
that.
did.
I said that he
You
didn't
did.
scrub a prior ICA in favor of this one, but go ahead.
So it says, quote, Washington Post, the CIA has concluded in a secret assessment that Russia intervened in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump win the presidency rather than just to undermine confidence in the U.S. electoral system, according to officials briefed on the matter. Literally the day that Obama orders a new ICA, you've already conceded that prior to this, there was no assessment from the CIA, FBI, or any intelligence agency.
They hadn't ordered an assessment.
Okay, so then...
There was that ICA hadn't been ordered. A president's daily briefing is not the intelligence community's assessment of an entire thing. The last assessment had been done in September.
So you acknowledge there was a prior ICA? Yes?
In September, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So would you also acknowledge that that ICA did not say that Russia interfered to help Trump?
Correct.
So then my statement is correct that says prior to December 9th, there was no ICA, there was no intelligence community assessment that said, whether it be from the CIA, FBI, or anywhere else, that said that Russia was interfering to help Trump. You concede that's true?
I'm not conceding. Yeah, I agree. That's the factual record. Correct.
Okay, so then...
But you're acting like this, like President Daily briefings are not like published. You keep saying that like Obama stymied something. These aren't published to the public or anything.
Okay, nonetheless, here's what the Washington Post argument says, right? It says the CIA has concluded, this is December 9th, the same day, immediately following Obama saying, I want a new ICA. Now we're getting leaks to the Washington Post that says the CIA has concluded in a secret assessment that Russia intervened in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump win the presidency rather than to just undermine confidence in the U.S. electoral system, according to officials briefed on the matter. We would then see stories within days from the New York Times, other news outlets that would pick up this story almost immediately. So what happened was the narrative prior to December 8th was Russia's just meddling in the system. Even with these data leaks, it's just a hurt confidence.
On that Washington Post story, why did they say that? What was the sentence right after? Not just to undermine the U.S. political process more generally. The Post report cites officials who say they have identified individuals connected to the Russian government who gave WikiLeaks emails hacked from the Democratic National Committee and top Hillary Clinton aide John Podesta. One official described the conclusion that this was intended to help Trump as the consensus view. That was a change. In September, they didn't have a high confidence that that hack was Russian. At this point, they had that confidence.
First off, no, that's not true. You don't have any evidence that they did more research. If that was the case, then why was President getting presidential daily briefing meetings the day before that said that the conclusion wasn't that they were trying to help Trump?
They weren't tasked with that. They were tasked with what kind of attacks were being done on the election infrastructure. They were being tasked with exploring what Russia's motivations were.
And yet you've already conceded that they spoke to the motivation when they said that the motivation was to undermine confidence in both candidates.
It wasn't about picking one candidate or another. It was the motivation to change the outcome of the election or to just cause mayhem in general. It wasn't do they prefer one candidate or another. It was what was the goal of what kinds of attacks were they doing? That's what it was tasked with finding.
Okay, well, we do keep looping on this, and we do have to have like a statement. Like, Rob, do you think that they actually were trying to do you think that they actually had evidence one way or the other and that they had cleared this, that they knew that they were not trying to help one candidate over the other at the September report?
I think it has nothing to do with clearing. I think that they came to the conclusion that there was no evidence that they could show that suggested that with any confidence whatsoever that Russia was trying to interfere to help Trump. In fact, to the contrary, as the December 8th daily briefing shows, it was just like they always do to meddle in the system. However, here's the important part.
You have no evidence of this, right? I just want to be clear. There is no evidence of what you're inserting. You have no evidence of what you're inserting. Yeah.
That's not true. I have evidence. The first piece of evidence that I'm suggesting here is literally that day we see leaks from the intel community saying there's already an intelligence consensus that Russia did this to interfere to help Trump. That's what the Washington Post.
Why couldn't it be that at that point they'd figured out with a high degree of confidence that the Podesta and the DNC email hacks were done by Russia, that they knew that with a high degree of confidence? That would significantly change the assessment, wouldn't it?
Yeah, real quick, Destiny, was there new evidence? Was there more information from September to December that would have changed? Yes, of course.
Yes, they had been doing more. They had there was a private company that came in, I think, did stuff with the DNC, I think, and either the FBI and the CIA, and the CIA had been doing its own whatever their fucking intelligence gathering bullshit is. But by that point, the confidence level changed. I believe that first assessment, I think they say low to medium or something, that they don't have high confidence, but by January they have high confidence that those hacks were done by Russia. And we know now that they were done by Russia.
Do you think that the evidence that they gathered between September and December, do you think that this was enough evidence for them to actually change their minds, or that it could have?
No, it can't be, because we could see exactly what they included in the ICA to suggest that they now were saying that Russia was doing this to help Trump. Now, I want to be clear. Destiny's full of shit. What he's arguing here is that Barack Obama says, okay, everyone, I want you to come together with all these agencies and come up with motivation and everything. And before they even get started, before they start, we're already seeing leaks that night that says there's a consensus. We know that Russia did this to help Trump. And Destiny's like, yep, they had it figured out by then. It took them like 2 hours from when they were tasked with doing this by saying, yep, there's a consensus. Despite the fact that we see people in the Durham annex from like actual people in the CIA. There were 5 people at the CIA working on this. 2 of them were constantly pushing back against Brennan like, look, dude, we don't see it. We don't see this evidence. And yet, Destiny's like, no. It was all figured out within 2 hours. The consensus was done.
Okay, so So while that's mentioned in the first report, what do you believe the intent or the goal of the first report was? Because Destiny's saying that was not what they were tasked with for the first report. So what do you think that the first report, like,
well, no, wait, to be clear, let me be clear. The first report was tasked, I think, with asking all sorts of questions about this. An ICA is an intelligence community assessment altogether on the whole thing,
correct,
right? But the president daily briefings were, what they were concerned about was literally like election security. Like, are all of our voting machines going to get hacked?
You're saying this would be more specific?
Yeah, the president daily briefings just had to do with like, is Russia trying to attack our systems? Like, what's going on there? But it's not like a whole intelligence community assessment on like, what are the motivations of Putin? What's he trying to do in terms of, does he prefer one leader or another? That's a broader assessment that requires a deeper level of intelligence analysis.
The difference is an ICA is sort of an official document that's put together. The presidential daily briefing could be on anything. It's not necessarily from the intelligence community. This PBD was the evidence that the intelligence community had at the time to speak to what Russia did, what they were capable of, and what their motivations were. And that assessment in December 8th said...
the president daily briefing included every single thing the intelligence community knew about Russia's motivations for the election intrusion stuff? That 2-page document? The 2-page PDP was all the intelligence. Then what was that statement?
Well, what I'm saying is that the presidential daily briefings could be a bunch of things, right? It doesn't have to be intelligence, right? It could be a PBD on here's what the CPI is this year.
Yeah, whatever he wants to. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
That's a president. So it's not the same as an official ICA. However, this particular PBD was seeking to inform about what Russia did in the election. It was giving a brief summary. An ICA is going to be more intensive. This is just sort of like what you would expect to see in a summary of an ICA. And what this summary said was, look, they tried to hack like election infrastructure. We don't think they were successful. There's no evidence that they were able to change any votes or anything like that. And just like when they leaked all this stuff, like with WikiLeaks and shit like that, we think that their motivation was that they're just trying to mess with the system and disparage both candidates. That's what it said. And your argument's like,
wait, it didn't say disparage. It never said disparage both candidates. You're adding that word.
The specific word was
undermine, right?
Let me see the specific. This is hilarious. Undermining.
It says which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects, such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates.
Oh, so okay, it didn't say disparage. It said undermine credibility of. I mean, it's a fucking joke, Destiny. Come on. You do this shit all the time, the semantic game. So, okay, my bad. It didn't say disparage the candidate. It said undermine the credibilities of the candidates. Like, so, and Destiny, he knows he's fucking wrong about this. He knows that he's just like, well, just because they said what the motivation was, Obama didn't specifically ask them and tax them with saying what the motivation was, so we shouldn't count that. Now, again, on December 9th, what we see is immediately when Obama's like, no, that's not going to work for me, brother.
Just before we move on from this, because like, I guess, so for Tom, I don't know if you have to make a ruling or what, because obviously we disagree massively here. So my statement is that this presidential daily briefing, this was not an in-depth exploration of what Putin was doing or what his motivations were for disrupting the election. This was basically an assessment of what types of attacks can we expect, or what types of attacks do we think occurred in this election, right? And the sourcing on this is literally just the first paragraph of this daily briefing is, we assess that Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure. They talk about the compromise of an Illinois voter registration database and an unsuccessful attempt in other states. Okay, and then they say election monitoring and the type of systems targeted, infrastructure not used to cast or count votes, make it highly unlikely that it would have resulted in altering any state's official vote result. Criminal activity also failed to reach the scale and sophistication necessary to change election outcomes. New election technology in the future that decreases diversity in systems and expands computer-enabled functions provides additional avenues to manipulate votes, but it will remain a significant challenge to sway elections through cyber means. This daily briefing was asking, were they able to change the outcome of the election? And one of these, the one that Rob is reading off, that he's saying, oh, this is about the motivations. It was them saying, we have low to moderate confidence in the Russian government's involvement because of our uncertainty about its utility for a state actor, a lack of observed effects from the low-profile operation, and the actors' use of obfuscation techniques, which included substantial overlap with criminal actors using similar targeting patterns and tactics. The activities did coincide with high-profile Russian cyber-enabled data leaks during the election, which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects, such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates. So that statement there is saying that they weren't trying to change the outcome of the election for one candidate or another. They were just trying to, the hacks targeting things were more related to psychological effects, such as, they're not saying they tried to do both. They were saying, such as, here's examples of psychological effects. One psychological effect would be undermining the credibility. Another psychological effect might be undermining the candidates. Now, in a later assessment, we find out they were trying to undermine one candidate. But this assessment is not about Putin's motivations. And you can see that throughout this entire President Daily Briefing. No other part of this is going to address Putin's motivations. And the idea that they would include such an important tidbit of information in one sentence, in one bullet point about a PDB that's not really related to that at all is actually kind of funny. I guess unless you haven't read the context of any of the ICAs that have come out since this.
Okay, so interesting strategy here. Destiny's hoping if he reads a bunch of words really fast, he'll be able to employ some smoke and mirrors so that you don't read the actual language that this says. This is a 3-page summary of what the intelligence community has found. They were talking about the things that they were able to do, such as hacking the DNC and those sort of cyber hacks that they had, hacking sort of voter registration rolls, attempts to do that. And they said that the motivation with this, just like the motivation with the DNC leaks and all of that stuff, was to undermine the candidate's credibility and to sow psychological warfare and distrust in our system. That's what they said. Destiny could read as fast as he wants a bunch of other shit saying, no, actually, you shouldn't trust that because what they're talking about specifically is the fact that they're trying to undermine the election system through election infrastructure and things like that. So yeah, even though it says that they're undermining the credibility here, it doesn't really matter. None of that fucking matters. Destiny's trying to employ spoken beards. I will read it again to you slowly because I don't have to rush through it like some fucking asshole so that you don't understand the language. It says, and I quote, the activities did coincide with high-profile Russian cyber-enabled data leaks during the election, which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects such as undermining the credibility of the election process and the candidates. When all else fails, just read a bunch of irrelevant shit really fast and say that this line doesn't matter. He'll have you believe that this was just an accident. They accidentally included this. It clearly wasn't what they intended to say. Or he'll say, oh, it didn't say that they disparaged the candidates. That's wrong, Rob. It said it undermined the credibility of the candidates. It's a fucking joke. The point is, this was what Obama was looking at. The next day, he calls a meeting and says, I need a new ICA. And within that evening, there are leaks to the Washington Post, which would then go out to the New York Times and other places saying, it's it. We've reached a consensus. The intelligence community's reached a consensus hours after Obama tasked us with this. Yep, it turns out, unlike everything we've said previously, the motivation was to help Trump Russia. Or to help Trump from Russia. Now, we could get into the 3 pieces of evidence that we've been stalling for the past hour if you want, that shows how weak and flimsy this argument was. Would you like to move there, Destiny?
Well, let me ask
we've
you a
got both of our
question real quick.
interpretations up. Go ahead.
Is it possible that it is both? Because I like, it sounds like when I listen to both of you read these, it sounds like to me that at one point it's talking about the fact that they do want like both sides to be fighting with each other so that it causes like a bunch of, internal strife within our, partisan sides. But then the other thing could be that is also like step one or part of the plan to eventually help somebody win.
Oh my God,
but
this guy's a fucking genius, Tom. Correct.
But hold on. But Rob, you're saying that because they came to the conclusion like very quickly that that means, like, you would say that looks like they didn't actually do a whole lot of investigating into this, right?
Tom, I'm saying, what I'm saying is I think your bias is clouding your judgment here. What I'm saying is quite simply, they spoke on the motivations of Russia. They said that the motivation was to cause distrust. They didn't say, and maybe we'll later find out it was to help Donald Trump. They didn't say it. Is it hypothetically true that they wanted to sow distrust and help Donald Trump? Sure, but they never said it. It's also hypothetically true that they wanted to sow distrust and they were trying to get on The Apprentice, and that's the reason they were doing this. Just because two things aren't mutually exclusive doesn't mean that we should assume that that's something that could have happened. There is zero evidence. In fact, to the contrary, they're speaking, the intelligence community is saying, we've assessed the motivation. The motivation is to have distrust in our system and to undermine the credibility of both candidates. Obama orders an intelligence community assessment to be redrawn. The day after that, within that night, they're saying, we've reached a consensus. Russia interfered to help Russia. And when you look at the ICA, there's only 4 pieces of evidence that they use. One is the Steele dossier, which even if I want, I could concede Destiny's argument that no one saw it. It's laughable that they included it just because funsies, like James Comey said, we have to include
But they didn't include it. Do you want me to? I give you the quotes from them fighting over whether
it was in the annex, right, or in the.
But that's it. It was quarantined off in the annex. That's it.
Yeah, certain people got to see that. Brennan, for example,
but nothing was used. Nothing was built on the ICA from the Steele dossier. Do you acknowledge that?
Brennan specifically had said, right, one of the things he had said was when he was approached by his own intelligence officials, we don't like this. We don't think it should be included. He says, yes, but does it ring true? That's what he said. Does it ring true?
Wait, what are you reading? Wait, what are you quoting from, Rob?
Let me see.
Yeah, go ahead and link us in the chat and we'll read the whole thing. Tom, another thing to chew on for that. So remember what I said, that the title of that PDB of the President's Daily Briefing was Cyber Manipulation of U.S. Election Infrastructure to Remain a Challenge. So the sentence that Rob is reading, the activities, that's the cyber manipulation, did coincide with high-profile Russian cyber-enabled data leaks during the election. And then the next part of the sentence is, which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects, such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates, right? So the activities that they're talking about here, my guess is these are like the particular vote manipulation things. If you're looking for a broader ICA assessment on do they favor one candidate or another, this PDB is not talking about what were the motivations behind the high-profile Russian cyber-enabled data leaks. They're just talking about like the targeting of electoral systems. It's not just,
so
it's not, that's not like a summary of like all the...
At the time that Obama's asking for another analysis, do you have a reason why he would ask for another analysis at that point?
So you're buying into Rob's. He's not asking for another analysis. He's asking for a formal ICA assessment. Presidential daily briefings are not like, oh God, I don't like this. I need something new. This is just, he wants to build off of that. Now it's essential to Rob's framing that he's saying he rejects that. These aren't published. These aren't public. And none of this is rejected. There's nothing in the PDB that's contradicted by the later ICA. Like that's not true at all, right? The ICA is just a more formal, like a PDB is Rob is kind of right. It's like intelligence officials basically say, like, what are we briefing the president on today? Here you go. And an intelligence community assessment. Now that's where the intelligence community, the individuals are like, this is why you have emails back and forth from people. I think for the first one, like the FBI was like, hey, we don't sign off on this. Like we're not going to be put on this. Like we don't like the way that this is phrased. We don't have this assessment here. People, the intelligence community will fight over whether or not they're included in an ICA and what degree of confidence is there. I don't even know. The ICA stuff is a way more formal assessment. So asking for an ICA doesn't mean that you're rejecting your PDBs. It's just like, oh, this sounds really interesting. Can we put together something formal on this?
Again,
so you think they already have all this information at the time?
There you go.
And then
there's
no reason to think they don't. Correct. Yeah, there's no reason, and that's why Rob has no evidence of it.
You guys just have a discussion about it. Cool. I mean, I would do that too if I was getting blown the fuck out. No, what he conveniently Tom, just to clarify what he's doing here. No, it's not just speaking on. Oh, they're just looking at whether or not they manipulated votes and got voter registration rolls on. They're just seeking to speak on that, and the PPD is not this important thing. No, the PPD is updating the president on what the intel community is working on. The intel community at that point is working on Russia interfering in our election. So at this point, what they're specifically talking about in this PPD is we're looking at claims that they tried to hack election infrastructure. And they're saying, yeah, we don't think they were successful. Just like when they released the WikiLeaks shit, We came to the conclusion that the reason for this was just to meddle in the system to cause psychological damage and to undermine the credibility of the candidates, both of them. So Destiny's saying, oh, but PPDs
You can't
don't
source
really
that.
matter.
Rob, just to be clear, Rob can't source that from anywhere. I can source everything I just told you. I can find a prior ICA.
I can't source it? Would you like me to do it again? You want me to read it again?
That they released the DCCC and the DNC hacks to undermine both candidates?
What?
How does that even make sense? It was just attacking the Democrats. That doesn't make sense, Rob.
Let me read it again. Ready? You want to know what they said about it? I asked you. You conceded this.
Wait,
I said,
hold on. You think that you? No, I just want. No. You don't have to read the quote. We've seen it. But I'm curious. You think that the intelligence community said, "Wow, they leaked stuff from the DNC and from the DCCC that is all about Hillary Clinton and the Democrats." They did that though just to attack the whole system. You think the intelligence community assessment said that?
Yes. You want me? You want to know how I know?
And then why did they change? Yeah, I know you're going to read the same thing. Wait, so but then why did they change their entire? Why did they? So then Rob's story, my story is they changed their assessment by the time the January IC.
Like I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to let you keep
let him read his quote. Let him reread the same quote. He wants to reread the exact same quote again. He lives in quotes. This guy lives and dies in single sentences.
I think I've been very generous, like of leaving you speak when you want, and you constantly interrupt me. So if Tom's not going to do anything about it, and you keep insisting, then I'll interrupt you. I don't give a fuck.
I just told him to stop so that you can talk. Why do you keep doing this? He's accusing me of making your arguments. You're accusing me of making his arguments. Go ahead, Rob.
The reason I believe that's what the intelligence community was saying was because that's their words. Again, the activities that coincide with high-profile Russian-enabled data leaks during the election. I said, Destiny, what do you think they're talking about there? You said, yeah, the DCC leaks, the things that went to WikiLeaks. Right. So they're saying these activities go with the WikiLeaks and the hacks of the Podesta and DCC leaks, which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects such as undermining the credibility of the electric process and the candidates. What happened is there were
those things are not part of this PDB, Rob. That's not what they're discussing.
But they're talking. Yes, you're right, Destiny. This PBD was talking about something. Will you acknowledge this could happen? That the intelligence community could be looking at various things that Russia did at the same time. Will you acknowledge it?
That's not what this was about. They were only talking about election. Rob, they were not talking about the DCCC hacks. They weren't talking about the email leaks here.
That's not the question.
Rob, if you go down to 47, you can read. Why are they writing this article now? Why are they writing? This piece will build upon our previous 14th of September PDB by providing assessments on observed cyber activity against U.S. elections up until November 8th. While there were notably more high-profile cyber operations surrounding this election cycle, this piece discusses election infrastructure specifically and what we observed. This was not tasked with finding out the motivations of Vladimir Putin in his intrusion in the election. It was just, why were they going after election systems? To cause psychological warfare, not to change the outcome of the election. That's it. That's all this was tasked with.
Since you're incapable of answering a yes-no question, I'll answer as if a good faith person was. Destiny, do you think it's possible that the intelligence community could be looking at multiple things that Russia interfered? Yes, Rob, I do think that's possible.
Yeah, they were, of course.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you for finally answering, Destiny. Okay, so previously they could have been releasing assessments that said there were the WikiLeaks hacks, right? They could have done that, like maybe in September?
They weren't tasked with that. That's why the ICA was requested. That's what Obama asked them for. They said, hey, put together an assessment of all of us. That's what the point of the request was.
So I just want to be clear. Your argument is the intelligence community never sought to figure out what was going on with the hacks. They were never tasked with that, so they never did.
But when are they presenting this to the president? That was the goal of the requesting of the intelligence community assessment. Do you think they just email him every day? Do you think Comey's like, hey, Barack, what's up, dog? Just let you know, we found this fucking thing. No, dude, this is why Obama asks them. Give me an ICA. Tell me what's up with everything. That's the whole point. This is why Comey fought to include the dossier, because he's saying, I don't even know if the president's been briefed on this. I don't even know if Trump knows about this. This was his words to McCabe when he was arguing to include it in the fucking ICA.
You're spurging out has nothing to do with the facts of the matter. So I want to ask you this. In September, they put forth what you're calling an ICA, correct?
September was the first one of the two we're talking about, yes.
Did they mention WikiLeaks hacks or anything there?
I believe they did, yes.
But wait a minute, they weren't tasked with that. They weren't tasked with it. How could they possibly do it? They weren't tasked. They weren't tasked. Obama never tasked them.
Rob, they were tasked with it. It was an ICA. You just said it. That's why he's asking for a second ICA. You're trying to compare that ICA to the presidential daily briefings. You dipshit. You're just trying to trap me, and you walked into your own fucking race.
No, you fucking idiot. My point is, it doesn't matter if it's an ICA or not. The intel community was immediately tasked with figuring out what went on with the hacks of the DNC. That's one of the reasons that they started Crossfire Hurricane in the first place. So your argument, well, they never really sought to figure out the motivation or what was going on with those hacks, is a fucking joke. and they were constantly giving reports to President Obama. Now, regardless of all that, you've already conceded. You conceded that September ICA, which you're now saying, one, including information about WikiLeaks hacks, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Second, it did not.
I've always said that. Yeah.
Second, it did not say that the motivation was to help Donald Trump, correct?
Yes, because they didn't have a high degree of confidence that those came from Russia when they made that first ICA.
Thank you so much. So there's the point.
You're
so
welcome.
the September ICA didn't say that it was Russia that hacked?
They didn't have a high degree of confidence that the hacks were from Russia. They did by January.
Okay. What was the degree of confidence they used?
Was it low to middle or whatever?
Did they seek to say what the motivation for Russia could have been?
I think it was just general at the time is what they thought.
But what did it say?
I don't have to scroll up and find it.
You've read it really fast several times.
I did. I don't know. I mean, like, so on page, 6 of this? So one thing they say is, if the disclosures of the DNC and DCCC documents were indeed orchestrated by the Russian intelligence services, those services would very likely have sought Putin's approval for the operation. We make this assessment because of the expected high-profile nature of the resulting controversy and the high likelihood that the disclosures would be linked to Russia because of open source reports about Russian involvement in the DNC and DCCC hacks. So, like, they didn't have a high degree of confidence at that time, although if they did get a high degree of it, then it would probably change their assessment of Putin's involvement and Russia's motivations, which it did.
It did. So my understanding, if I remember, it's been a while since I read the September ICA, was that it said that the monkeying of Russia, it didn't just say those hacks, it was talking about other Russian interference, that it was done in the same reason that it's always done, in general, to sow distrust in our system. Correct? If I remember correctly, you're clearly expressing your mind.
Yes, that was the initial assessment in September. But until they had
So
more
then-
information.
okay,
You
so then-
you gather more information as time goes on, Rob.
Notice what happens is now you're moving the goalpost. So the goalpost originally, when I said,
Rob, hold on, no, I'm sorry. Now I'm going to restate my entire thing from start to finish. You keep saying I'm moving the
I
goalpost.
don't
I moved
give
any
a shit.
goalpost.
You can keep
In the
restating it. I don't care.
in September, they are tasked with, here's what the intelligence community thinks about things, okay? Now the DNC and the DCCC hacks happened. They didn't have a high degree of confidence that these were done by Putin. They have had prior attacks and election interference that Russia's done, as well as other actors. They're trying to determine what are the likelihood that they can hack the whole election or change crazy things like that. They think that's probably not the case. If they are going to do any hacks, it's probably just going to be a fuck with our election system. We don't know at this point if they have any clear, preference for one candidate or another. Maybe they just want to throw discord into everything. But by the time January rolls around and they find out, GRU operatives were personally involved with that DC Leaks website. They were personally involved in disseminating information about the Democratic Party to attack them. And Trump was, in statements to the media and through Russia Today, showing a clear preference for one candidate over another. And over time, come January, the assessment changed.
Your repeating does nothing. So what happened is we could see then that they were tasked with looking at the motivations, right? So that
For the
it was
ICA,
absurd.
yes.
I had to prove that because it was absurd that you tried to claim.
You don't
that
have
they
to.
weren't.
I've said that the entire time. For the ICA 1 and 2, they were. For the
that's not
PDBs, they
true.
weren't. Do you
That's
agree with
not
that? For
true.
the PDBs, they weren't. Oh, what evidence do you have? Do any of the PDBs speak to the general motivations? Not just like the,
Yes,
this is
this
the
one.
electioneering hacking. Do any of them
This
say, we think that Trump did not prefer one candidate over another?
This one.
No, okay, so you're going to reread the same
Right,
sentence
right.
about
This one did.
what the
And
goal
so,
of- yeah.
so now
Okay,
that we know
gotcha.
that they were tasked with finding the motivation about the WikiLeaks hacks, and we know that they were updating, that's what a PBD is, updating, this is what we're working on. The reason I asked you of could there be working on...
That's not what a PDB is.
Please, let me
PDB is
finish.
about a particular thing. It's not everything they're working on. You're wrong there.
Well, it's the intelligence community is talking about this specific thing they're working on, but a PBD is about, in general, anything possible that want to update the president on. So here's what happened. They looked at the WikiLeaks things. Here's another area that they're looking at. Possible infrastructure hacks of voter registrations, etc. At this point, it's after the election, right? So now we're in December. The September ICA that was looking at the hacks, right? They came to their best conclusion of what was going on there. And they're still, would you acknowledge this? Most likely they're still researching after September. They didn't just throw up their hands and say, we're no longer looking at the DNC hacks. You acknowledge that?
Yeah, they say the FBI and the NSA have low confidence in the attribution of the data leaks to Russia. Yes.
Okay, great. So now here's what we got in totality. They're continuing to look at that. They sought to speak on the motivations in September. It was like pulling teeth to get you to admit that they were at one point tasked with that. So they're at one point tasked with it.
I've
Then,
said that. I'm going to
let
repeat
me
this again because you
finish.
keep lying about
Let
this.
me finish.
That is what
Let
the
me
ICAs
finish.
are for. You
That-
keep
let
mixing
me
up
fin-
PDBs with
It has nothing
ICAs.
to do.
I've
So
always
the
said that's what the
PBD
ICAs are for.
The PBD this time, what they're saying is, okay, here's what's going on, Obama. We're looking at this sort of potential hacking voter registration and shit. And ultimately, we think the conclusion, and this is, they're still working on the DNC hacks. They're still working. And they say, we think the conclusion of why they did this, and I'm quoting now, They coincide with high-profile Russian cyber-enabled data leaks during the election, which we assess probably were intended to cause psychological effects such as the undermining of the credibility of the election process and candidates. In other words, what you just admitted was the entire time they would have been working on this, they were tasked with finding the motivations. They, at the time of December 8th, the best evidence they had on the motivations was they're just fucking with both candidates, both credibility and fucking with our system. That's the conclusion that they drew on December 8th. Your argument is laughably, one day later, they reached a consensus that was totally opposite of that. That they're talking to the Washington Post saying, actually, we have a consensus that the motivations completely changed. It was to help Trump. That's fucking laughable.
Okay, you just don't understand the conversation.
I think I do.
Do you guys want to go to?
Yes, I want to move on.
Go to the other.
I want to move on.
Evidence?
The three things, the three pieces of evidence, right? Number one was the sentence.
Also, wait, where are you pulling this from? Link what we're reading from? What are we pulling from?
It is from the Durham Annex. So, I don't know if. Oh shit. Is this? Shit. I screwed up the URL on this. But
the 29-page, the declassified Durham Annex released by Chairman Grass?
No,
okay.
It's not that one. Let me see. It was the one released by Tulsi Gabbard. Let me bring it up. I'll bring it up.
Newly declassified appendix to the Durham report.
Approved for release DNI July 22nd, 2025. The Oversight Investigation and Referral. The Intelligence Community Assessment. April 18th, 2020. Let me see. I screwed up the URL, but I think it's saved on my bookmarks, so I can find it for you real quick.
Fuck. Can you DM me this, Tom? Or I don't see where it's posted at.
I don't see it either.
Where can I put this for you guys to see?
There's a chat on the side here. I can create a group real quick if you want.
Or just once he links it, just send it to me in a DM because I can't open it. It'll fuck my shit up.
Okay, where do you want me in the chat?
I just created a group DM. So
a group DM. Oh,
if you just put it in there, that'll make it easier for everybody.
Okay, you got that? Okay. Let's go to page 6.
Of the file?
Correct.
Like 6 out of 46.
Well, actually, on the left there. So click page 6. It'll actually be page 4, but it's page 6. Right? Now you see the light blue. Where it says
wait, so it says like 6 on the bottom?
No, page 4 on the bottom, page 6 on the left side. You see what I mean?
Okay.
All right, here's the three pieces of evidence. Number one scant, unclear, and unverifiable fragment
Hold on, wait. I just want to be, I need to be very clear for a second, okay? I think Durham did a good job at his report. I think that's a real-ass ninja. I have respect for him. To be clear, this comes from the dogshit House Intelligence Report, which was 46 pages, included no new information, and was an absolute fucking joke when it came out, and was contradictory to the 996-page report that came out of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and it contradicts findings from the Durham report. But go ahead, we can read.
No, I believe this is from the annex of the Durham report. Let's scroll up to the top and see what that says.
Well, so the URL you gave me says declassified HPSCI.
Maybe you're right. Maybe this isn't. I'm mixing up. Nonetheless, like the idea that you just want to attack the source thing.
I can tell it's not Durham because the writing is dog shit. It looks like a House Republican.
Okay, so then you'll be able to provide
in terms of being able to breathe and talk at the same time.
Before I do this, show me all the evidence in the ICA that they used to say that Russia favored Trump. Go ahead.
I mean, we can go back to the ICA. I don't know how much of that is available in the ICA versus what's classified.
This was looking at the classified information, including in the Durham Annex, and this was the three pieces of evidence they had. Now, you have access to other information. I'd love to see.
You're asking me to take why would I take the word of a House Intelligence Committee versus the entire Intelligence Committee signing on to an ICA? Why would I ever trust just a single House committee over that? Especially one that released a 46-page report on this.
Also, I don't know that I don't know where you're getting that this is particular. Let me see. Let's scroll down to the bottom and make sure that you're correct in your assessment that this wasn't from Durham or it wasn't a compilation. Nonetheless, the House assessment also doesn't speak as to what their direct evidence was. It just says, yeah, we agree. We saw evidence. We think that Trump was connected, that Russia was trying to help Trump win. That's it. I welcome you. You're so confident in this. We're at least looking at people that were looking at this and looking at the available evidence saying, okay, we looked, here's the available evidence. Here's what intel people were saying, right? They were saying like, what the fuck? This is really bad. And yet this was the evidence that was included. And you're like, well, I don't know.
I can tell you what the ICA, I can tell you what the ICA assessment is. And you want to counter that with what the House committee's assessment was, which stands in contrast to Durham, which stands in contrast to the ICA, and it stands in contrast to the Senate intelligence report, which is almost 1,000 pages long. If you want to throw your lot in with these guys, then that's fine.
It does not stand in conjunction or against Durham. It doesn't.
Does Durham ever agree with any of this? Does Durham come out and say, oh, yeah, I think that they were incorrect in their assessment that Putin developed a favor for one candidate over the other?
I believe I'm not quite sure that he uses those words specifically. I could look into it, right? But nonetheless,
okay,
like, it's like, so just to be clear, you have no evidence whatsoever. You're just completely taking at face value without seeing any evidence that this is incorrect and that actually there's evidence that we're not looking at that Russia was, in fact, interfering to help Trump. That's your claim. You haven't seen the evidence.
I don't have a TSSCI clearance, and I'm not on a need to know. Right. I don't have top secret clearance, so I don't know what you want me to say. So the, I mean, like the statement in the ICA, and again, I don't have TSSCI. If anyone in my chat does, or is part of the CIA, or is a fucking cabinet member, feel free to email me. Is we also assess that Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorability to him. The CIA and FBI now have a high confidence in this judgment based on sensitive information not included in this version of the assessment. The NSA has moderate confidence in this judgment based on the same sensitive information. NSA's confidence would be elevated to high with additional corroborating sources. In trying to influence the U.S. election, we assess the Kremlin sought to advance its longstanding desire to undermine the U.S.-led liberal democratic order, the promotion of which Putin and other senior Russian leaders view as a threat to Russia and Putin's regime. And then a bunch of this is censored.
Okay, that's fair. So one scan. Here's.
Oh, wait, and then one more thing.
Oh,
Putin most likely wanted his intelligence services to discredit Secretary Clinton because he blamed her since 2011 for inciting mass protests against the regime in late 2011 and early 2012, and holds a grudge for comments that he almost certainly saw as disparaging him. Judging from press reporting, given this, we assess with high confidence that the GRU was directed to pass material it collected to WikiLeaks and other intermediaries. We assess that Putin, his advisors, and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump over Secretary Clinton. We based this assessment on its redacted and Russian state media, indicating that Russian officials saw President-elect Trump as more favorable to key Russian interests and more in line with Putin's preference for leaders he views as deal makers. Throughout the election, Russian government officials characterized Secretary Clinton and Democratic politicians as particularly unfriendly to Russian interests.
Okay.
There's more here. I can keep reading if you want. You asked me for the evidence.
So do you want... read as much as you want, and then I'll return.
Sure. Beginning in June, Putin's public comments about the U.S. presidential race avoided directly praising President-elect Trump, probably because Kremlin officials thought that any praise from Putin personally would backfire in the United States. Nonetheless, Putin publicly indicated a preference for the president-elect's stated policy to work with Russia, and pro-Kremlin figures spoke highly about what they saw as his Russia-friendly positions on Syria and Ukraine. Two positions that Trump seemed to be pretty Russia-friendly on, by the way. Putin contrasted President-elect Trump's approach to Russia with Secretary Clinton's aggressive rhetoric, according to Russian press reporting. Moscow also saw the election of President-elect Trump as a way to achieve an international counterterrorism coalition against the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant. According to diplomatic reporting, the Kremlin has historically preferred Republican over Democratic candidates, judging that Republicans had been less focused on democracy and human rights and were therefore easier to deal with. Putin has had many positive experiences working with Western political leaders whose business interests. Moscow assessed it made them more disposed to deal with Russia, such as former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi and former German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder. Putin, Russian officials, and other pro-Kremlin pundits stopped publicly criticizing the U.S. election process as unfair almost immediately after the election because Moscow probably assessed it would be counterproductive to building positive relations. We assessed the influence campaign aspired to help President-elect Trump's chances to victory when possible by discrediting Clinton and publicly contrasting late in the summer. Senior Russian diplomats and intelligence officers assessed Secretary Clinton was likely to win the presidency, judging from blank and Russian press reporting. As a result, we assessed the Russian government began to focus more on undercutting Secretary Clinton's legitimacy and crippling her presidency from its start, including by impugning the fairness of the election. Moscow, therefore, held back some pre-election influence efforts to use. Yeah, okay.
You good?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Finding number 3. The ICA failed to acknowledge the key judgments on Putin intentions were based on raw intelligence that did not meet tradecraft standards. The ICD 203 instructs that intelligence tradecraft properly describe the quality and credibility of underlying sources to include factors affecting the reliability of the information such as source access, motivation, possible bias, deceptions, and accuracy, completeness. Accurate citation of raw intelligence reporting is critical in explaining the reader's reliability of the evidence used to drive judgment. Yet the ICA disregarded these fundamental sections that claim Putin intended on Trump to win. Key classified reports cited in the ICA in support of judgments of Putin developed a clear preference for candidate Trump and aspired to help his chances of victory contain flaws in terms of clarity and reliability. The ICA omitted or obscured such information from context statements that the CIA's Directorate of Operate had raw human intelligence reports, thus failing to warn the reader the significant failings of the credibility, the quality of the foundational sources. First, Brennan, the DCIA, ordered the formation of the reports, which failed to meet CIA credibility standards. In response to direction from President to make all information available, CIA officers said the DCIA, who is Brennan, ordered the publication in early December 2016 of 15 new or revised CIA human reports containing information on Russia activities collected prior to the election that CIA professionals had decided not to publish for various reasons having to do with tradecraft standards. Most of the 15 were unremarkable but contained 3 flawed information, and these 3 became foundational sources the ICA claimed that Putin inspired to have Trump win. Senior CIA officers said some of the information in these reports had been judged to have not met various long-standing intelligence community standards for publication, and that's why they'd not been published in the first 2 acquired. 2 sensitive reports were not published on Brennan's orders. The 3 reports were published after the election on Brennan's orders, despite veteran CIA officers' judgment that they contained substandard information that was unclear, of uncertain origin, potentially biased, implausible, or in the words of a senior operations officer, odd. The 3 reports became foundational sources for the ICA judgments on Putin preferring Trump. The first, one scant, unclear, and unverifiable fragment of a sentence from a single human report published under Brennan's orders in 2016 constitutes the only classified information cited by the ICA for judgment that Putin ascertained to help Trump's chances of victory when possible. The ICA did not cite any report where Putin directly indicated helping Trump win was the objective. That judgment rested on questionable interpretation of this one clear fragment of a sentence. The unclear fragment shown in bold is part of the sentence, one that reads, quote, Putin had made the decision to leak the DNC emails after he had come to believe the Democratic nominee had better odds of winning the U.S. presidential election, and that candidate Trump, whose victory Putin was counting on, would most likely not be able to pull off a convincing victory. A senior CIA operations officer said of the fragment, we don't know what was meant by that, and 5 people read it 5 different ways. The significance of this fragment to the ICA case that Putin aspired for candidate Trump to win cannot be overstated. The major high-confidence judgment of the ICA rests on one opinion about a text fragment with uncertain meaning that may garble for which it's not clear how it obtained. This text, which would have not been published without Brennan's orders to do so, is cited using only one interpretation of this meaning without considering alternative meanings. The report containing the fragment did not directly say or imply that Putin developed a preference for Trump, nor did it say that Putin ordered his intelligence service to assist Trump's stances. The ICA presented only one interpretation of the unclear fragment and does so without following their directives to distinguish between underlying intelligence, information, and analysis, assumptions, and judgment without incorporating analysis of alternative explanations. Brennan overruled CIA professionals and published the site of the ambiguous fragment. CIA officers and the component running the Russian operations described how 2 versions of the report, one without the fragment and one with, were published as the ICA was being written. Experienced CIA officers responsible for Russia reporting, evaluating raw and human intelligence, initially omitted the fragment for the version of the report which was published December 2016. DCIA, that's Brennan, countermanded their decision, however, and ordered that the fragment be...
Are we going to read the entire
Yes, that's
House
what I'm going to
report,
do.
or-
That's what you're doing, so that's what I decided I would do. Seems fair.
Well, but
I didn't interrupt
So the
you.
difference is that, like,
I didn't interrupt
yeah, the difference
you,
is
so
that.
please
So
let me
my
finish.
my
No,
thing
no,
was an
please let me
intelligence
finish.
community assessment.
Please
This
let
is
me
just like a
finish.
House report
Let me finish.
that nobody else agrees with. There was no corroborating
There's
evidence
about 40
for.
pages to get through. Please let me finish. Right, this means I'm winning when I just read things. In fact, I could read it faster if you want, like you do. That's how we do it, right?
Do you acknowledge, what do you think is a more credible reporting? Do you think the intelligence community and every single cabinet level official coming together for their intelligence, underlying intelligence agencies to agree on a particular thing? Or you think the House committee that came out and published this 46-page document where they agree with basically everything that they said, except for the one part where they said that Russia preferred Daddy Trump?
I think that what's more preferred is what's looking at the actual evidence, being able to look at it all.
You don't know any of the actual evidence. I'm
That's
sorry,
not
wait.
true.
What, name one piece of actual evidence that you just cited?
That the only classified piece of information to say that that Putin affected Trump was this one sentence fragment. There's one piece of evidence that I know.
That's it? Where did it come from?
It came from the classified. It came from
Classified
the
what?
classified of the ICA.
Where? Where did they get it from? You have no idea, Rob. I don't know what any of this shit is because it's a dog shit report. This is 46 pages of trash that the Republican House put out because they were ass-payed, all right? And you can see the difference because if you want, you could read the 1,000-page Senate report, which is a real
Then give me the evidence that
actually
they
tried to
cite.
interview
Give me
people
the
and
evidence
things
they cite.
We're not classified, Rob. I can never win that
It
debate with
just
you. I
said
can't
there
show
was
you
only-
the classified
there was
intelligence.
there was
Here's
only-
the question:
There-
if all of
there
this
we
was,
go.
if all of this wasn't true, why didn't Trump just get a new ICA to say that, oh, this was not true? Why rely on House Republicans to do it?
What did it matter?
What?
What did it matter? Why would Trump need a new ICA?
What why? Because
That's what
why
he's
would
doing.
you rebuke an ICA with a House Judiciary Committee
That's
report or a House Intelligence report? Why
what
would you do
he's
it? You understand these two things are not the same, right?
No, what he's doing is he's showing, and now we see that the ICA is coming through in the form of Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, et cetera, that are looking into this, and they're actually interviewing people that are whistleblowers, et cetera, talking about the problems that were within the House. What they were doing
What
was,
is the
yes.
one? Oh, so what is the one biggest new piece of evidence they found? One new piece of evidence.
Well, I'm just reading
Anything?
to you. Yeah, I just read you. There's only, your entire argument is, well, we don't know what the ICA said. It's all classified. That's bullshit. It's not. You just read shit that wasn't classified. That's what they used to rely on. If it's true that this is bullshit,
Rob,
then why?
you
let me
understand,
finish.
Rob,
Let me
when
finish.
did this, Rob? Yeah.
If this is true, that this is all made up bullshit, then why hasn't anyone, John Brennan, anyone from the intel agencies, anyone from the Democrats that were on this sort of Senate Select Committee that looked at all this, why didn't they say that's not true whatsoever? There were a ton of information. None of them have said
First
that.
of all, I'm pretty sure people like Obama have
come.
come out and said this bullshit. Here,
What did he
you know
say? Go
what?
ahead.
Let's play a game here. Hold on.
What
Are
did
you
he
watching
say?
this, Tom? Tom, what was my argument? That there was significantly different stuff that came out from September to January, right? That maybe that would have changed the intelligence community's
that there was
assessment on
more
things.
evidence after the September one.
Yeah. Right?
Okay.
This House report was authored and released, or I don't know if they released it publicly. When did this even come out?
September
like 4 or 5 years
18th,
old?
2020.
The report was,
When was
done
the second
in 2020. It
ICA?
wasn't
When was the
released.
second ICA, Rob?
The second ICA, the one we're talking
Was in
about,
January of
2016.
2021.
2016.
Oh shit!
You're a little
fuck,
off.
Fuck! Oh, I got. Okay, never mind. Just kidding.
Yeah, 4 years before.
Wrong
this.
election.
Right, and this.
I
was
still stand by what I say though. There's
Right.
nothing new. Nothing new has come out in this. You don't have access to any of the
That's
underlying
not true.
intelligence.
That's
There's-
not true. It's specifically, and this was
I
classified.
just asked you. You have
Again.
nothing. There's nothing. There's no underlying intelligence that you're citing. They're just saying that they're saying that we agree with every single thing basically the ICC said, except we disagree with their assessment that they preferred Trump because it made them ass pained.
No, what it's saying is that was the key assessment that was used as the launching pad to go after Trump with all these investigations, and that conclusion is bullshit. You're just making
I understand
the
that's what they're saying, but why would I trust them over an ICA?
Because they're literally telling you what the intelligence officers that were working on it were saying. They're literally
That's
giving
what the
you
ICA is literally telling you.
That's
It's supposed
not-
to give you the assessment.
That's not what it's doing. What the ICA did was it just gave you, at the end of the day, a bunch of shit that Brennan put out there that people that were working on it were like, we have significant problems with this. We think this is wrong.
No,
to
they
include
did
this
it. By
shit."
the end, they all
Yes.
signed off on it. You're
That's not
literally
true.
doing what you're accusing Obama of doing. Rather than looking at the entire intelligence community assessment of a particular thing, you want to take one or two pieces of data and say that you don't think these are credible, and therefore you can make some broad assessment on the entire situation. This is how we got into Iraq. This is literally the Office of Special Plans right here. Why would I believe the House Intelligence Committee's 46-page bullshit report where they say we don't think we lived up to their standards, as opposed to the Intelligence Committee's assessment where all of them are signing on to and agreeing with and affirming each other's work? Why would I ever take just that? And why did the whole Senate Intelligence Committee, why didn't they come out and reinforce the House's findings?
What's happening is that there were huge abnormalities that went with this. There was a time frame crunch that they said, unlike any time that we do this, you have to have it done within like a month or two before Trump comes into office. There was the direct involvement of people like Clapper and Brennan and Comey, which is almost never done in these ICAs. And there was a tremendous amount of influence and pressure being put on people, including whistleblowers that have came out afterwards and said, look, and unnamed people that are saying in here, like, we weren't comfortable with this. Senior CIA analysis saying, no, this is
Who
wrong.
cares? You don't need
Right.
every single individual to be on board with a thing. That's why it's called a consensus. It's not a unanimous approval. Of course, there are going to be some people that are uncomfortable with things. You're never going to have a unanimous approval of every single thing that comes out of intelligence. I'm sure there are some people that disagree with certain assessments. At the end of the day, it's up. You task the entire agency with doing an assessment, and then the entire intelligence committee doing their assessment. I'm sure that you acknowledge that there are probably individuals that disagree with tons of random things that have gone out with a high level of confidence or assessment. No?
I'm saying what we're seeing here is that the direct
Can you
evidence
even
was
admit
used-
that, or you really can't even admit
No,
that?
sure. There's
Can you
people
admit that there are things? Okay.
Sure. There's
all right.
What I'm saying here is this is giving a definitive list of the evidence that was used to come to this conclusion, and it's all horseshit. And you refuse to look at it because you're like, whatever. I don't like the House, so they must be full of shit. I'll prefer the ICA.
It's not that I refuse to look at it. It's I can't evaluate it. We can't evaluate it. I don't know what the entirety of the ICA
usage was. I don't have access to that information, and the House is making it sound like they're only relied on one or two things. If that's the case, why didn't Durham pick up on this in his report? Why didn't the Senate, 1,000 page report, why didn't they pick up on it?
There was shit in the Durham annex that was about this, and the fact that you don't want to trust it, instead you're going to trust people that clearly
what did Durham
Trump.
say? Okay, what did Durham say about it? What did Durham say about this?
I'll have to go to it later. So I have a bunch of documents out there, right? But the fact that you'll trust people like Brennan and Comey and Peter Strzok and these people in the intelligence community that clearly hated Trump and were talking things about an insurance policy.
Why will I trust the intelligence community about intelligence assessments over the House intelligence committee? Yes, of course. Yeah, no shit, I will.
My entire argument is that the intel community had a double standard that was blatant the entire time. Your entire argument is, yeah, but I trust them. That's
that double standard was investigated, right?
No.
By
yes.
Durham,
And now
yes.
we're seeing. Yeah. Do you want me to read what Durham said? You want to hear his ultimate conclusion? We've done this before.
No, because we already know what Durham said.
What
Durham
did he say?
Durham said that the foundation, right, for some of the FISA warrants initially, when the FBI was not good, that the FBI suffered from a degraded practice, that they were engaged in some political bias. Durham did say that. What did he say about any of this shit? Fucking nothing, because there's nothing to say about it, because this is all bullshit, right? Durham had nothing.
What he's talking about.
Durham said that there was no evidence that there was a preference for Donald Trump from Russia. He said that in his report somewhere. Can you guide me that, or show me that?
I will look at the specific language. What Durham did say in his conclusion was there was rot, basically, in that changing individual policies weren't something that was necessary, because the problem was that people in the FBI were basically acting without fidelity, that they were engaged.
First of all, he literally suggested policy changes. Okay,
but he said that
yes.
Go ahead.
He said that they acted with political bias, yeah, and that they definitely, there were things that they should have done a better job on, but not
here, not with the ICA. The same intel people that did the bias with the FISA warrants and all that shit, they were on the up and up with the ICA.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was Durham tasked with?
Durham was tasked with looking at the review of Crossfire Hurricane.
Wasn't that just the FBI?
I think it would also have been Mueller. I could be wrong, but it wasn't the ICA. The ICA predates.
Yeah, exactly. The ICA includes a whole bunch of other intelligence agencies. So just because the FBI had issues, especially related to the FISA warrant stuff, right, doesn't mean that the entire ICA assessment now could be tossed, because we think every single intelligence apparatus was completely flawed, especially when it doesn't seem like anything that they said was wrong. I don't even think anything wrong came out of the FBI investigation. The only thing that sucked was the initial justification for the FISA warrants probably wasn't good, but it's not like all of their assessments were incorrect.
It's amazing, like during your spurging, how you don't understand that you actually subvert your own message. So if you're right that Durham was only looking at the FBI and he wouldn't have looked at the ICA because it was other agencies, then how the fuck can you say, but Durham would have said something that was corrupt?
Because I don't see anybody else who touched on this idea. Well, no, because wasn't the FBI part of the assessment of the ICA? The FBI is included in the ICA, and they agreed to sign off on all the claims that were made in it.
So now you retract your argument.
I literally read in the ICA that the FBI had a high degree of confidence. Did you not hear me say FBI and CIA? And NSA, like these are all part of these intelligence community assessments. Yes, but Durham didn't, and neither did the Senate report that went over this entire fucking bullshit either. Nobody found any of these wrongdoings that somehow Tulsi, who was elected, by the way, in order to say that the whole system is rigged and corrupt and hacked, has now magically come out with a report saying the whole system is rigged and corrupt and hacked by re-releasing old documents that everybody already had. Like that, and there is no strong evidence of literally anything that you're alleging at all, except for this 2020 report saying, well, we don't like some of the underlying evidence that they used, even though I don't know why the fuck I would trust the House intelligence over the entire intelligence community's assessment here.
All right. So again, the idea that everything was right is bullshit. The evidence is stark. It's here. It shows that there was scant evidence to suggest that Russia was doing anything. The fact that we could see that there was bias, that they were already leaking that this was conclusion. December 8th, they said, we don't think that that's the motivation. December 9th, they said, yes, this is a consensus. This is a motivation. After they talked to Obama, we see people that were working on this that said that they were pressured by Brennan. We have whistleblowers that have came out. When you look at the evidence, it's stark.
Well, let's go. No, wait. Let's go one at a time. Well, one at a time through all these. So one, we have zero evidence of Obama directing anybody to change anything. Correct, right? We have no evidence of that.
Circumstantial evidence strongly suggests that it was after he got involved that this changed that day.
Okay, so number one, we have no evidence of that, okay? So then for the second thing, what was the second thing you said? The whistleblowers?
Yeah, we had people like these whistleblowers, or people like that are listed here that were interviewed.
Which whistleblower, who are we talking about?
So I just read that talked about the intelligence community officers that were talking about all of these sentence fragments, the other three things that they were saying, we didn't trust this, we thought that people were reading it different ways, we were uncomfortable.
Are these whistleblowers, or are these just people who were interviewed by the House Intelligence Committee?
Fair enough. Let's say people that were blowing the whistle but aren't really whistleblowers, that were just talking about problems they had with the ICA.
Okay, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? Like, it's
Of course it
expected
does.
in an intelligence organization with thousands of people. There are going to be some people that might disagree with assessments, right?
So-
that doesn't mean that the assessment was
What we
bad,
can see
especially when they
is-
can't point to
but
any actual.
But we can. They're pointing to the actual saying, this is what we were told to do, and this is why it's bullshit. You're just like, I refuse to hear it because it was a Republican House that looked into it. That's your only argument.
Sure, I mean,
But
like, it sucks
here's
that we
it.
don't have, like, as opposed to the January 6th Select Committee, where we had hundreds or thousands of pages of deposition released, where we had video interviews, where we had a 1,000-page report released at the end. Getting a 46-page poorly formatted report, where some of the things that were cited in the report like didn't even make sense, is just kind of silly to rely on. In contrast to why didn't the Senate Intelligence Committee report, which was 1,000 pages, way more information, why didn't they stumble into these same problems? Are you saying that the ICA, all the intelligence community, and the Senate, in their massive 1,000-page report, those were all biased, and Durham didn't find anything, and he was biased, and Mueller didn't find any of this, and he was biased, but that 46-page House report, that was where the truth was?
I'm saying that where the 46-page House report
You're
talks
not gonna
about the
answer that
actual,
question.
I'm saying that when they talk about the actual evidence was used, and you can see the
yes.
evidence is lacking, we should refer to it. Here's other things that it
So
said.
Mueller, the
Here's
lifelong
it.
Republican,
Here's
Durham,
it.
the
There
lifelong
we go.
Republican,
There we
the
go.
Senate Intelligence
Here we go.
Committee,
Here
and all
we
these
go.
people, they all missed
There
it.
we
But the
go.
House 46-page thing, they found it. Okay.
Yep, you're right.
Gotcha.
The House.
Go ahead, bro.
So you're right. The House that released this in 2020 that was covered up by the Biden administration, right? And then saying, "Oh, it's Tulsi that's releasing it. She's corrupt. She's doing this." Yep, you're right.
How were they
That we
covered
should
by
get
the
ignored.
Biden admin?
What's that?
Couldn't
I'm
Trump
sorry?
have just... Hold on. Who? No, wait. No, you just you made the mistake. Now
What are you
this
talking-
came out in September 2020, September 18, 2020. Wasn't
Yes.
Trump still in office?
Yes.
Fuck you. So then it wouldn't have been
talking-
covered by the Obama admin at that point. Then again, that was Trump, motherfucker.
Well, no, I know that Trump was there in 2020. What's that have anything to do with what I said? Right? That
He couldn't have covered it up. This would have come out under Trump. How could he have covered it up?
Theoretically, he could have. I would guess that maybe it's possible for the president to unilaterally declassify things that are being done by House committees, but that would be very unusual.
Careful, because Donald Trump literally said he could psychically declassify material that he took to fucking Mar-a-Lago. You're going to tell me that he's going to argue that he didn't have that he? But you made the stronger claim that he covered this up. Why would this not have been released if it was? They probably didn't release it because it was bullshit, and they knew it even back then. It was bullshit.
Well, if it was bullshit, then why wouldn't they just say it? No one said this is what. Here's other things that it said. I assume this is bullshit too. Do you think it's bullshit when this report specifically talking about evidence that they had of more wrongdoing of Hillary Clinton that Russia had hacked and they chose not to release? Or is that all bullshit too? They just made all of this up out of wholesale cloth, right?
What do you mean that was bull? They didn't have any evidence that Hillary Clinton did anything wrong.
That's not true.
Of course it is.
What our intelligence community found was Russia withheld tons of more indicted evidence of Hillary Clinton than they actually released. In fact, they could have released.
No. Well, we knew. No, we don't know if they could have released any of that. We just knew that Russia had plans to do propaganda in the United States.
Okay. Here we go with some of this. Here's some of the things that our intelligence found that Russia had that they chose not to leak about Hillary Clinton. In September 2016, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service had Democratic National Committee information that President Obama and party leaders found the state of Secretary Clinton's health to be extraordinarily alarming and felt it could have been a serious negative impact on her election house prospects. Her health information was being kept in the strictest secrecy, and even close advisors were not fully informed. Why wouldn't they release that information if they were really trying to help Donald Trump?
What? Well, it's funny because this is part of the statement that I said makes this less credible. It's because they didn't even read the initial ICA statement. What did the ICA say? The ICA said that by the end of the election cycle, all of the polling was favoring Hillary Clinton so much that it was likely that the Kremlin was withholding some information with the goal of attacking Hillary after she won the election. And that's why they withheld some of their propaganda things.
That's not true at all. In fact, this report talks about...
Wait. What's not true? What I just said was not true? That wasn't literally something that I just read to you earlier in the ICA? Do you want me to go back and find it?
No, you could go back and find it, but if they said that, they're inaccurate. In fact, the polls were getting remarkably closer as the election day came close. You deny that? So if the ICA spoke to the opposite of that, they're lying.
Hold on. Rob Noor, who I guarantee you my life savings, I could go back and find a billion videos of you saying, oh, the pollsters were so wrong. 99% of all the pollsters. You're telling me that the poll said it was remarkably close?
All right, Real Clear Politics average. Ready? October 17th.
I know, I've seen the same. Oh my God. The rewriting of history in real time right here, ladies and gentlemen.
My claim was that the polls were really wide, saying Hillary was fucking crushing, and as the election was getting closer, that shrank. They still said Hillary is going to win. Your argument is the ICA said the reason that Russia wouldn't release any of this shit was the polls as the election got closer were so wide margin of Hillary Hillary Clinton that they said, there's no reason to even try. That's your argument, right?
That was what the ICA assessment of Russia was. Hillary win the election by 3 million votes in terms of popular vote, just, But yes, that was Russia's assessment according to our ICA.
You look up where the ICA report says that as the election was getting closer, that the polls were widening and that Hillary was winning. Here's what the real clear politics average was. October 17th, Clinton by 7. 18th, Clinton 7-1. 19th, Clinton 6-5. Then it's like in the 6s all the way down to the 23rd, 5-9. Then it's in the 5s all the way down to October 28th. Then it's 4.6. Then we get down to October 31st, 3.1. November 1st, 2.2. November 2nd, 1.7. November 4th, 1.6. November 5th, 1.5. November 6th, 1.8. November 7th, 3.2. So as you can see, we started in October 17th. Right? We saw that the gap was incredibly huge. And then all of a sudden, and that's what this report's saying. If Moscow wanted to interfere, they'd have been like, holy fuck, the polls are tightening. They're within like 1 or 2 points. If we release some of this damaging information that's way worse than anything we've released so far, I just read you one thing. I could read way more. It would really hurt to help turn the tide. You're saying, no, the ICA says they would have never done that. I'd like you to show me that information.
Okay.
In addition, while you're looking that up, you can interrupt me anytime you find it. Here's other things that our intel agencies found that Russia had. They had hacked material they had hacked material from the DNC saying that Obama's team was scared shitless about Hillary's health, which was one of the biggest stories in the news cycle, that everyone was being gaslit wasn't happening. But they had information from Obama's team.
There's no evidence that any of those things are true, by the way.
It doesn't matter if they're true. What we have is it's true that Russia had material from
Russia had propaganda plans. That's it. There was no evidence that even had material from the team. That was just the propaganda. It is true. That's what Brennan literally said.
That's not true. What this says is...
It is.
This says that the SVR, that our intelligence communities found that the Russian intelligence community had DNC information. They had hacked DNC information that said that President Obama and party leaders found the state of Secretary Clinton's health to be extraordinarily alarming and felt that it would seriously negative and control her impact. Here's other emails that they had through various hacks. They had possessed DNC communications that Clinton was suffering from intensified psycho-emotional problems, including uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness. Clinton was placed
none of this is, there's no verification on any of this.
That's not
also,
true.
Real quick, if you want to go to the ICA number 2, it is true. Page 89. We assess the influence campaign aspired to help President-elect Trump's chances of victory when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to the president-elect. Later in the summer, senior Russian diplomats and intelligence officers assessed that Secretary Clinton was likely to win the presidency, judging from blank, 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 and Russian press reporting. As a result, we assessed that the Russian government began to focus more on undercutting Secretary Clinton's legitimacy and crippling her presidency from its start, including by impugning the fairness of the election. Moscow, therefore, held back some pre-election influence efforts for potential later use. That's what the intelligence community assessed. I understand that your House Intel bullshit for their 46-page release, that they disagree, but they don't even cite this to the ICA, which leads me to wonder if they even read it. But
no, but
even your own information. And then all of the things that
keep going. Even your information proves
the ICA assessed that Russia thought that Hillary was going to win the election. Okay, and that's why they likely held some stuff back. At least that was the assessment of the ICA. You're reading off stories right now that Russia said that they could leak, but there was no information that any of these were true. At some point, I think Brennan communicates this to somebody saying, like, here are some things. I think Ratcliffe publishes a memo or whatever. But if you read the memo that Ratcliffe publishes, he literally says, like, the intelligence community hasn't confirmed that any of this information is true. It could be part of like a Russian disinformation, basically.
Nope, that's not true. It clearly says that they had hacked these things. They got it from an exposed DC Leaks and Guccifer is where they got a lot of this information, these emails they had. In addition, your own
That's Russian propaganda. You cited the 2 Russian propaganda websites, yes.
Okay, was the information that was leaked then all Russian propaganda? So everything they leaked from the DNC hacks and Podesta was all made up? So there was no hullabaloo.
Some of it was, yes. Some of the emails were literally cobbled together. And to quote from the Ratcliffe thing, because I know that you like to quote in debates one of these things, you like to quote that, according to his handwritten notes, former Central Intelligence Agency Director Brennan subsequently briefed President Obama and other senior national security officials on the intelligence, including the, quote, alleged approval by Hillary Clinton on July 26, 2016, of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services, end quote. This is one of the pieces of information that supposedly came out, but the sentence right before says, the IC does not know the accuracy of this allegation or the extent to which the Russian intelligence analysis may reflect exaggeration or fabrication. All of this stuff was just stuff that the Russian intelligence agents were going to try to leak into the United States. And we already know that some of the emails were faked because some of the emails that came out trying to claim that, like, for instance, like that this whole crossfire hurricane started in the Hillary campaign, some of those emails were assessed to be fake, that our intelligence believed, yes, Russia did create these emails. Yeah, that did happen.
So the ICA says that they had this material that they had hacked. Even if some of it, you could say that some of the stuff they hacked wasn't true. This is stuff they're saying that they confirmed that they had communications from inside the DNC, etc. We know that they had access, or at least they're alleged to have access in this. This is what we get from the DC leaks in the first place. Now, before you spurged out and wanted to interrupt, the own ICA report there, notice it said by the end of summer. Yeah, by the end of summer, you're right. It did look like that Hillary was going to win. However, the House report here, or the review of the ICA, says the following. The ICA judged that Putin wanted to help Trump's chance of victory when possible by discrediting Clinton, and that he never abandoned this objective. Yet when the race evolved to the point that it became possible for Putin to help Trump win, the polls narrowed dramatically. So after the summer, as I just showed you, polls were dramatically narrowing. And yet, the GRU warned Putin in early September that Trump would lose unless they had the intervention of remarkable derogatory information on Clinton, which, even if you're right that the information they had was fake, why wouldn't they release it? So they're saying...
Because, well, if it was fake, well, remember, if we agree with the ICA, if we agree that they had already assessed that showing, like, having Putin come out and go, Trump would be my best friend, probably wouldn't be very helpful. The stuff that had been released relating to Hillary Clinton's email server and the DCC hacks and all of that, these were real emails. If Russia starts dumping shit that's fake, I know this because I've been maligned personally, the best thing that can ever happen to me is somebody mounting a bunch of fake bullshit attacks against me on top of some credible ones, because I get to ignore all the credible attacks and just talk about the bullshit. If Russia would have released some bullshit on Hillary that was clearly not fucking true, like, for instance, I don't know if you read this or not, I don't have it in front of me, but whatever you're reading from also says that Russia had determined, for instance, that, like, Hillary Clinton had type 2 diabetes. What is it? Do you think that's true as well? And she's hid that the whole time? And some other, like, rare diseases or whatever, some other forms of disease? Like, no, these are just bullshit propaganda things. Why would they release fake shit when they were already getting so much traction on the real stuff, and when Comey was being so helpful to Putin already by announcing the email investigation so many times?
You've been scolded by me several times on the Comey reopening the investigation. I don't know if you want to go back to that again. I'm more than happy to school you once more. It's remarkable how many times we interact on some of these things, and then after you admit, yeah, I was wrong, you go back to the same old fucking talking points as soon as we're done. So I'd be happy to go back to the Comey reopening investigation. Really means he was trying to help Trump thing, if you like.
Doesn't matter. Well, no, I'm not trying to say what the goal was. I don't think I've ever said he was trying to help Trump, but I'm saying if you look at the intelligence community's posture relating to the 2016 election, the intelligence community did way more to help Trump with the way the FBI made public statements than anybody else did to help Hillary Clinton.
So anyways, I'm going to keep, that's not true, right? We could see that the investigations that they were going after Trump, we could see the leaks to the press. You had the Michael Isikoff report that talked about these things, the dossier.
They were all after the election. These were after the election.
That's not true. The Isikoff report was in September. The Mother Jones story came out at the end of October that talked about investigations.
Wait, Isikoff, what is the Isikoff report? The leaks you're talking about to the...
Yahoo News.
What?
Yahoo News report
about
talking
what?
about Carter Page.
Okay,
that was then cited by...
That wasn't announcements made by the intelligence. That wasn't Comey going in front of a thing, or Brennan or whatever, or McCabe going in front of like a fucking microphone making huge announcements to the press.
It doesn't matter. These were...
Nobody knew about Crossfire Hurricane. Nobody knew about the huge... Okay.
That these were leaks that were coming out from the intel community.
Yes,
about... Okay, right. So the idea that nothing came out until after the election is not true. The reason that the investigation...
Wait, what do you think was more negative attention to?
Stop interrupting me. Like, again, I'm going to start...
Well, you're just lying so much. Like, what was more negative information coming out about, Trump or Hillary? It was Hillary, the email shit, obviously.
I'm not going to lead the constant interruptions. I don't give a fuck. What I'm saying is the reason that there was an investigation to Hillary that was announced was because it had to be announced because the House actually called for the investigation. That's not true. It had to be. The House actually petitioned... It absolutely was not abnormal for the House that was actually subpoenaing records for the FBI to say, okay, we're going to look into this. Because the House was literally subpoenaing Hillary Clinton's records. So everybody in their mother knew
why would that force the FBI to announce anything?
I guess it wouldn't, but everybody knew that they were investigating.
Oh, sounds like there's some political malfeasance there from the House then. Crazy. The same House that you're citing for your House intelligence report, huh? Isn't that insane? Isn't that crazy?
It's not the same.
But anyway, okay.
So yeah, there is something called the House of Representatives. So if they've ever done one thing you don't like, we could say that every House of Representative is corrupt. That's your argument? Whether it be 2016,
Republican ones.
2020, just Republicans ones, right? We got it, right? Other evidence that they had here, right, includes that they had these emails, right, that was suggesting that in August, there were details of a secret meeting with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which the U.S. State Department representatives offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton, significant increases in financing from department funds and the patronage of the state in dealing with post-Soviet countries. It had evidence that FBI Director James
There's
Comey—
wait. There's no evidence that that claim is true, right?
It doesn't matter if the specific claim is true, if that actually happened. What matters is that they had evidence, they had emails that they had hacked that said this, and they could have released it. That's what matters.
Hold on, Rob. I just want to be clear that I understand what you're saying. You're saying that you do not trust that our intelligence communities, as part of an ICA, could come together and make a statement about Putin's motivations correctly, but you trust our intelligence agencies to know what the Russian intelligence agencies know?
Excuse me. I'm saying—
Yeah, yes, is that what you're saying? Can you, without talking around that? That's what you're saying. Because all this information is coming from our intelligence agencies. So our intelligence agencies are good enough to know what the foreign intelligence agencies know, which is already insane, but they're not good enough to make an assessment on Putin's motivations?
Yes, an assessment has to do with your opinion on why something happened when raw data of what you're looking at is completely different. So if they're saying, here is the evidence we have, and other investigating bodies are looking and saying, yep, here's the evidence they had. We can see the evidence. We're looking at the emails they have. We're looking at it. We see it right here. Here it is. We see it. That's different than saying the intelligence community's theory is this was the motivation. We know, for example, let me ask you this question. Later on in this ICA report, it's going to talk about someone, or in the Durham annex, it's going to talk about someone named Bernardo or Bernardillo. This was a guy from the Soros Foundation, right? And he was emailing people connected to like the Hillary team. And he says at one point, this is where Hillary Clinton concocted, the Soros Foundation knows that Hillary Clinton was concocting this. You know this story, correct?
Concocting what?
The allegations that Trump colluded with Russia.
Oh, yeah, that's completely and totally fake.
Okay, what's fake about that?
There's zero evidence that the Clinton campaign was the one that began concocting that in August or whatever. There's no evidence whatsoever.
Okay, but was the email fake?
Which email?
The email that the intelligence community says they had.
Can you link me the one? It might be, because at least one of them was a fake email. Is this the one where they interviewed like every single person involved and nobody knew where the email came from?
Correct. Right?
Oh, then yes, that email was fake, and the intelligence community assessed it as being fake, yes.
Okay, no, what it did, just to be clear, what it did said it was probably an amalgamation of true emails. So the information when it was true, but the actual email itself was put together. Nonetheless—
Hold on. I need to know if you— wait. Do you actually believe the statement that you just said?
Yes, I do.
You think that you can cobble together random statements from other emails and that the email you put together from that is true afterward? Are you actually that fucking stupid?
No.
You're really saying that? That's the argument you're— Hold on. Wait. Link me the thing and we'll read the IC assessment. And then if you want to roll with that argument, you can. That is probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say in my entire life.
Okay.
But link me it's like a 22-page report that Tulsi released, and also hope that nobody would read the entire thing. But apparently you didn't either.
No, I read the entire thing. I read the entire thing.
Okay.
Oh, shit, that's the wrong one. Oh, shit. Nonetheless, we'll get to this, I promise. But you
find it. No, wait. We'll find it.
I was on a line of questioning, and then we can get to this. I don't mind doing that. But
you're going to build a line of questioning off of a fake email, off a fabricated email.
Let's say that I can—
It does matter. It's fake. The whole point is to make you think the theory that you're about to say, Rob. How are you so stupid? You're that easy to control? What the fuck?
If you would stop spurging out, I would tell you. The only point that I'm trying to make here, let's assume it's 100% fake, that Russia invented this whole thing. And yet, did our intelligence agents get access to what Russia was claiming to have?
No, I don't think they did.
Then how would they know that this fake email existed?
The reason why they know that this fake email existed is because when they did a search of the entire database of all the emails sent, one, they interviewed every single person who was part of this organization. Nobody had an awareness of this email being sent. Two, they couldn't find the original email sent or received on any inbox. And three, they were able to match whole sentences from the email to other emails that were in the Outlook system or whatever. So they assessed, oh, this email is probably a fabricated email.
Okay.
There were other fabricated emails as well.
Here's the fake email, right? There you see it? Fake email, right? It's fake. I made it up. It's fake. The intelligence community gets this. They say, oh, we got this thing. Look, it's a fake email. We think it's fake. But they got it from me. I had this. This is something they got from me, correct? It might be fake. I may have manufactured it, but they got it from me, correct?
Wait. No, I thought, weren't these part of a leak?
Yes. This was a leak of information that a foreign intel service found, that they found that it was evidence that Russia had accumulated. Now, the argument is, for the sake of this argument, I could concede that this particular email is fake. That's not why I'm bringing it up. What I'm bringing up is our intelligence agencies were getting information from themselves and from other foreign intelligence saying, we've basically hacked Russia, and here's what they have. Here's one of these emails they have, right? Now, your argument when I'm talking about all these other emails that they had, like they had emails about Hillary having health problems that was being talked about at the DNC. They had emails that was talked about religious organizations. You're like, no, I don't believe they had any of those. But my question is, you're conceding?
I never said I don't believe they have them. I'm saying that I don't. The validity of those wasn't assessed. They could have had a whole treasure trove of propaganda ready to go. We don't know if any of it was true or not. That's just what they were claiming on their propaganda side. That's how they were going to launch it.
So the point that I'm trying to make is, it doesn't matter if the validity was true or not. Once they see that the election's getting within 1 or 2 points, and we have reporting that says that they were like, we think Hillary's going to win unless we release some bombshell shit, and they have this bombshell shit. It doesn't matter.
But if the bombshell shit, if it is, it does matter if it's true, because if it's fake and it gets, okay.
Did they release?
If it's fake and it comes out and it's obviously fake, then it would probably hurt. It would probably hurt Trump. It would look bad. Oh, look, Russia is trying to attack Hillary Clinton. Wow, it looks like Putin does have a clear preference. You don't understand how releasing a fake hit piece could actually help an opponent? Wasn't that the Republican talking point for the past 5 fucking years? That all of the investigations into Donald Trump were fake, and that all the criminal charges convictions were fake, and that actually helped Trump? Why wouldn't this do the exact same thing?
Okay, did they release fake stuff with the WikiLeaks?
I believe everything that came from the WikiLeaks and DC Leaks stuff was true. I don't think anything was fabricated there.
You just said previously, we know they did release fake shit. That's what you said earlier.
The email things that you're talking about were not part of the DC Leaks or WikiLeaks. Okay, the WikiLeaks and the DC Leaks, I think it was a different trove of emails or whatever.
Yes or no? Earlier in this debate, did you say, we know that Russia released fake emails and shit? We know they did that. You said that earlier.
In regards to this email that you're talking about, I'm asking you to link it. I can go source it if you can't find it. But the thing that Tulsi declassified, these particular emails that came from something in Clinton's campaign or whatever, I don't think these were part of the DC Leaks or WikiLeaks. I don't think that they were released as part of that trove. That's why we just saw them.
Guccifer.
Yes, right. So the Guccifer hacker, the group. So he made a website.
Not part of the WikiLeaks?
No, so WikiLeaks was an organization that Guccifer handed all the leaks off over to because the DC Leaks site wasn't getting enough traction. But this particular email we hadn't seen before until Tulsi declassified it. I don't believe this was ever leaked or part of the WikiLeaks. That's why we're just seeing it now with Tulsi declassifying it. We've never seen this before.
So again, the point that I'm getting to is you previously, and this is the problem, you spurg out so much you don't remember the things you say. You're not interested in sort of getting to a true statement. So you said previously,
you have no interest in the truth.
Leaks, that's not bullshit. Anything. You said previously that the leaks that they had issued, that there were leaks that were inaccurate, emails that were inaccurate. That's what you said. Now you're saying that never happened.
Is that what I said, Rob?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
If that's what I said, Rob, then that's what I said. Okay.
You did.
So for the rest of the audience, that's not what I said. I said everything that leaked through WikiLeaks, everything that's supposed to be on DC Leaks, my understanding is all of those emails were real emails. Those were all real emails that came from the, I think from Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC and the DCCC. But these other emails that Tulsi declassified, I don't know 100% where those came from, but those weren't posted by WikiLeaks. And these emails that Tulsi declassified were fake. These were not real emails. Our intelligence community assessed that these were cobbled together from other emails and that they were fake and maybe part of some other plan for something they wanted to do, but they ended up not going through it.
So what I'm saying is these were things that aren't the same as what we're talking about in the ICA review that I'm talking about. Those ICA review are intel that our government had, just like they found out about the WikiLeaks. This was stuff that they got from the DNC hacks and from the Podesta hacks that they ruled that they had. They were able to see the stuff that was hacked. That's how they know what Russia had. They knew that Podesta was hacked and the DNC was hacked. And so they knew the evidence that was available to be shared, and yet Russia was holding back this shit. That's different than the Bernardo thing, right? But I'll read page 11. Let's read what they said, what the intelligence community assessed. You were making fun of me. Let's read. Give me a chance to read here. Page 11. You ready? The office interviewed numerous FBI personnel who were involved in Crossfire Hurricane or related to intelligence efforts to determine whether they could shed light on the potential reliability or unreliability of the information about the possible Clinton campaign plan. Certain analysts and officers whom the office interviewed and who were well-versed in the sensitive intelligence collection stated that their best assessment was that the Bernardo emails were likely authentic. multiple analysts noted that the Russians had, in fact, hacked Bernardo's emails. Some analysts also noted it was possible, however, that the Russians might have fabricated or altered purported U.S. emails. But some of these analysts also noted, and then it's redacted. In addition, the office obtained records from a number of nonprofit organizations and think tanks linked above to determine the accuracy of the sensitive intelligence as to whether, in fact, it reflected an actual plan by the Clinton campaign. These included Open Society, Atlantic Council, etc. Notably, the office was unable to locate in the records from the think tanks any exact version of the Bernardo emails obtained through T1, who was the intelligence service we got it from. The office did, however, identify certain emails, attachments, and documents that contain language and references with the exact same or similar verbiage with the materials referenced above. For instance, July 25th, 2016, the same date, Tim Maurer, a Carnegie Endowment cyber expert, replied to an email, blah, 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 on the same date. Then it says, in addition to this email from Maurer, think tank also, during the same week, Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook stated in media interviews the campaign believed the Russian government had carried out the DNC hacks. As noted above, the office conducted multiple interviews related to the intelligence, Bernardo, Marr, etc. When Bernardo was shown redacted versions, let's see. There is a conclusion they get. 1 second. Let me check my notes. But you can see they're saying, we think it was true.
For which emails?
For the Bernardo email that said that there was a Hillary plan.
Yeah, and for the
office's best assessment.
Was that the July 25th one? Careful,
Yes.
don't read that. Yeah, that's my thunder that you're about to
Number
steal.
17.
Okay.
Right? The office's best assessment is that the July 25th and 27 emails that purported to be from Bernardo were ultimately a composite of several emails that were obtained through Russian intelligence hacking of U.S.-based think tanks, including the Open Society Foundation, blah, blah, blah. Indeed, as discussed above, language from Maurer's email on 25th is identical to Bernardo's email the same date. Furthermore, given Smith's extensive contact to think tank community, her public role as an advisor, her communication to think tank regarding Trump, it's a logical deduction that Smith was at a minimum playing a role in the Clinton campaign's effort to tie Trump to Russia. Indeed, Smith's July 27th email to her think tank colleagues regarding Trump, Russia, and NATO the day after the candidate allegedly approved a plan lends credibility to such a plan. So they're saying...
So the office ultimately assessed that those emails were fake. Those were fake emails. There was no evidence that there was a Clinton... Do you not understand what you just read?
I do understand what I just read. What it said, if you listen to all of it, it said that its senior intel analysts said that they think that the information was true, that it was a composite of emails from other people.
Wait, hold on.
You want me to read it again?
A composite of emails is a fake... No, if you honestly, I can't. You can't possibly believe this. If Rob, I could quote you as saying, I am gay. If that's a composite of several statements that you've made, Rob, is that an accurate statement?
No, what they're saying is that there were emails, multiple people that were hacked, and that this information that is coming through is true information. The problem is that there's sort of, when it gets...
No, the information is not true. That's why they have to cobble together from different sources to make it sound like it's saying something that's not actually there. Otherwise, they would have to cobble together a fake email.
Let me repeat. Certain analysts and officers whom the office interviewed and well-versed in the collection stated their best assessment that the Bernardo emails were authentic. Multiple analysts noted that Russia hacked his emails. Some analysts noted it was possible that the Russians fabricated or altered it. In addition, the office obtained records from nonprofit, blah, blah, blah. Notably, the office was able to locate these, right? They identified emails and stuff. What they're saying is, and you can see as we get down later, where was it, page 15? Their best assessment was that this was true information, right? And that they were like sort of mixing up the names and things like that. But the information...
Not mixing up the names. Yes. They were putting together a whole new emails.
The office's best assessment that the July 25th and 27th emails that purport to be from Bernardo were a composite of several emails that were obtained through Russian intelligence. Indeed,
what do you think that means? Composite of several emails. They were cutting and pasting sentences together. They're trying to make it look like some guy was part of Hillary's campaign that was trying to put together some devious plan to go after Trump and connect him to Russia.
Okay, hold on. Wait, hold on.
Tom,
so hold on, wait, Rob, because he's explained this numerous times, and I would like you to explain, because he said over and over that he thinks they're putting it all together in like a different order so that it totally changes the information. I haven't heard you say, like, what is it that you think they're actually doing to where you would trust the information?
They're not doing that. What they're doing is, I'll read it to you again. The office's assessment that the 25th and 27 emails purport to be Bernardo were ultimately a composite of several emails that were obtained through Russian intelligence. So these were real emails, and that they kind of shoved all the information together together, right? Then it says, including the Open Society Foundation, etc. The email from the 25th is identical language.
Explain that. Explain what that means. No, wait. Explain that to Tom. Shoved all the information
Yeah, that's what I was
together
about to
from
ask.
different senders to different receivers from different emails. Explain what that might look like, Rob.
There's this lady named Sarah, and she's emailing 4 people saying, I'm working with Hillary's team to concoct a plan to spread Trump to Russia. Russia takes these and they're all jumbled together because they got 4 emails from her. They all say, I'm working with Hillary to concoct this plan, but they changed the verbiage because they're combining these emails into one that says that.
Why wouldn't you just release those 4 emails? Why would you need to make a composite? Why would you just release those 4 emails? That's what they say. What?
Because what they're getting is, they're again, we've seen that the intelligence community says that these assessments are accurate, that they believe this information is true. The idea that Russia is doing like our government.
No, they didn't say they believe. No, they didn't say they believe the information is true. They said that they reflect statements from other emails. You don't put together a composite of emails in order to say a true thing. You just release those emails, Rob. This is the dumbest argument you've ever made in your life.
It's not.
Why would you put together a composite email if you've got her saying that in 4 different emails?
The office interviewed numerous FBI.
Rob does not believe this. This is a bait.
That's not true at all. The office interviewed multiple personnel that were involved in Crossfire Hurricane to determine whether they could shed light on the reliability of the information. They had people that were well-versed in this. They stated their best assessment that this was authentic, that the information in it was authentic. Then they go on to say, in the section that you're cutting me off there, they specifically talk about this. The best assessment was that Tim Morrow's emails, all these other emails that are being sent saying the same thing. Those are accurate. Furthermore, given Smith's extensive context...
You're adding so much there, all saying the same thing. They said that the email hacks, that there were authentic emails in the hacks, but some of the emails were fabricated. They were just a compilation of, they were shoving together and cutting together sentences to create new emails in order to put them among the real emails to make these ones look real, to pretend there was a Clinton plan. That Clinton plan, by the way, which was fully investigated by Durham, of which they said there was no evidence of, ever, anywhere.
Okay, you trust Durham?
He did a whole specialized investigation, and he released like a 350-page report on it. So it seemed pretty credible. I've never seen anybody contradicting.
Is this the appendix from the Durham report?
You don't have an appendix from the Durham report, but you keep calling the appendix from the Durham report is the shitty House Intelligence Committee fucking thing.
This literally,
that's what you keep calling this.
Click on this. You were just reading it. Is this the House thing, or is this the annex from the Durham report?
This is from what you're reading from now?
Yes.
What you were reading from before, this now is part of the Durham report. Yes.
So let's listen to what the Durham report says. You say it never said that Hillary concocted this plan.
You're reading part of an annex, Rob. This is not the report. This is part of what they relied on. And he used this because it says in here, this would be, as Rob would say, wouldn't this be a good thing to investigate? Durham did investigate it. He found nothing.
That's not true. Here's what he said. I'll conclude. Destiny has a clever way of ignoring the actual language it said because he secretly knows what they're really trying to say. This is what he says. It's let's see. Bernardo's purported email. Furthermore, given Smith's extensive contacts with the think tank community, her public role as a foreign policy advisor for the Clinton campaign, and her communication with think tank colleagues regarding Trump, it is a logical deduction that Smith was, at a minimum, playing a role in Clinton campaign's efforts to tie Trump to Russia. Indeed, Smith's July 27th email to her think tank colleagues regarding Russia and NATO, the day after candidate Clinton allegedly approved the plan to tie Trump to Russia, certainly lends at least credence to such a plan existed. Moreover, Smith's text message exchange foreign policy advisor, the notion the campaign may have wanted or expected the FBI or other agencies to aid that effort to put more oil on the fire by commencing a formal investigation of the DNC hack. So this is saying we believe it. That's what Durham's saying. He's saying, ultimately we believe that Smith was right, that she was connected into Hillary's team. Is that not what that says? Is this not from Durham?
No, that's not what it says because you haven't read the Durham report.
I have read
I'll
the
explain
Durham
it,
report.
sure. So you have, oh, really? Then why was the Clinton plan so important in the Durham report?
Why was it? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Why was the Clinton plan so important in the Durham report? Why is it brought up?
He brings it up because they're talking about the predicate for opening the investigation in Crossfire Hurricane.
I don't know if you just ChatGPT that, but if you didn't, good job. Okay, correct. The point was to show that there seemed to be a political bias at the FBI. A lot of people didn't like the underlying stuff related to the Steele dossier. And one of the biggest claims that Durham came away with was that the Steele dossier was definitely leaned into way too much. And then one of the things that came out, now ultimately it was Russia propaganda, but they didn't know it at the time, which is why the office at that time thought that it was credible, was this Clinton plan. Well, hold on, FBI. If you've got this whole Steele dossier that you're looking into, why aren't you giving as much credence to this Clinton plan, of which there seems to be at least some credible start to an investigation that you could do, but you didn't take that Clinton plan as seriously as you did the Steele dossier. And I think that shows some level of political partisanship. That's why the Clinton plan is brought up. Not to say that it was actually true or real, because if you go through the Durham report, and I'll ask you to right now, you will not be able to find me any part of the Durham report where he says we assessed that this likely was true. They went through and they interviewed every single person involved with this, all the people who were part of these email chains. Nobody knew anything about this. There was no evidence that they interviewed Donna Brazil, they interviewed Hillary Clinton herself, they interviewed everybody. Nobody knew anything about this. It was fake. It was Russian propaganda. But the reason why it's brought up, the reason why it's in this annex, is to show that why didn't the FBI take this as seriously as the Steele dossier? That's why it was brought up.
You moron. The Steele dossier is the Clinton plan. You fucking idiot. That is the Clinton plan. Clinton concocted a plan to tie Trump to Russia. Here's more evidence of it. Ready?
Oh my God.
And what perhaps was the biggest bombshell.
Just so you know that Durham doesn't even have any evidence that Hillary Clinton even knew that the Steele dossier was existing, right? That the DNC, Hillary Clinton and the DNC didn't even work directly with Christopher Steele, right?
No, they worked directly with people like Fusion GPS that concocted this plan.
No, they didn't even work directly with Fusion GPS. They worked with the law firm. No, then cite me something. Cite me something that proves it. You said don't read random annexes and random. Cite me something that proves what you said.
I'm trying, but you keep fucking spurging out and interrupt because you can't help yourself. This is what you constantly do because you're incapable of debating the facts. Now.
Wait. Okay, we'll go to this part. Can you concede the Clinton plan had nothing, what you just said, that proved those emails? The emails were fake, they were Russian propaganda. Nothing in the Durham report says that the Clinton plan was a real thing. None of this was validated or verified.
It didn't say that it was Russian propaganda. It said that they believed that the information contained within those emails were an amalgamation that were true. I just read to you.
Retarded.
I just read.
That's the most retarded thing. I can't trust you to read. You're either illiterate or retarded. The fact that you would think that that's not a propaganda thing, that you think you can just hack together emails and make that's insane to me. I can't trust your summary of literally any other thing. Yeah, I can't. I have no idea. I don't even know if you speak English.
Yes or no? The Durham annex that I just read to you say that they likely think that it was true that Smith was working for the Hillary campaign and was working to smear Trump connected to Russia. Yes or no?
They said that was plausible. It was like a plausible thing to start an investigation.
Right. It said it was
most likely true. Sorry, which page was this again?
Let me see the specific. Let's see. Page 17.
The office's review of certain communications involving Smith and provided possible additional. Okay, page 17. Wait, the document or the bottom page 17?
Bottom of page. Furthermore, given Smith's extensive contacts with the think tank community, her public role as a foreign policy advisor for the Clinton campaign, and her communications with think tank.
Wait. Where is this? Wait. Where is it? What page?
Page 17. Bottom paragraph.
Wait, like on the
middle of the way through.
On the page
17.
It actually says it on the page.
It says page 17, both on the side and on the page. Last paragraph.
This is declassified Durham. This is the one that says the office's best assessment is that on the July 25th. That one?
Now, furthermore, you see halfway through the paragraph. Furthermore, given Smith's extensive contacts with the think tank community, her public role as a foreign policy advisor for the Clinton campaign, and her communications with think tank colleagues regarding Trump, it is a logical deduction that Smith was at a minimum playing a role in the Clinton campaign's efforts to tie Trump to Russia.
Yes. It was logically deducible from the Russian propaganda. Not that it was true, but that they should have investigated it. That's why the next sentence says, indeed, Smith's July 27th email to her think tank, right? The email that was fake, right? July 27th email to her think tank colleagues regarding Trump, Russia, and NATO, the day after candidate Clinton allegedly approved a plan to tie Trump to Russia, certainly lends at least some credence that such a plan existed, right? This is just saying that it should have been investigated more. That's it.
That's not what it's saying. It's clearly saying that we conclude that we think that it is plausible that this is true. That's what they're concluding. Furthermore, above that, I said they talked to FBI analysts that also thought it was true on page 11. Now, I'm going to continue with what I was saying before we got to this. We were talking about specific evidence that further shows that Hillary concocted this plan. One, we all know that they were concocting this plan, that they paid Fusion GPS to come up with this plan. Second, more evidence.
No, they didn't. That's not true.
Okay, so then.
Show me that. Show me that in the Durham report.
Show you what? That Hillary's team paid?
They paid Fusion GPS. One, They didn't pay them directly. They paid them through the law firm. They paid them to come up with a Russia collusion plan?
They paid them to get dirt on Trump that went through Christopher Steele, a foreigner, to try.
They didn't know it was okay. Okay, we're getting a little bit more honest. They paid for Oppo research from a law firm. That's what they paid for.
Okay, they knew that. I'm going to read my evidence. You can keep. National Review. And what was perhaps the biggest bombshell of the trial at this point?
No, wait, read from the Durham report. Why would you read National Review? Excuse me, what? Read from the Durham report. Which part are we quoting here? Give me a sentence and we read from it.
I'm gonna read the evidence I'm looking at, right? And what was perhaps the biggest
You're reading an article. Why would why, the National Review?
Because it's more evidence. And what was perhaps the biggest bombshell of the trial at this point, Mook also admitted that Hillary Clinton herself agreed to the decision to leak the Alphabet allegations to the press. Admitted it in court that it was Hillary herself that leaked the Russia-connected Alpha Bank story to the press. Okay, now let's go. Well,
hold on, wait. I need to look and see where this is coming from, right? I don't know what the fuck the National Review. I need to see where it's sourced from. I'm familiar with like the source material, not the Republican propaganda. So I have to figure out where it's sourced from.
I'm unfamiliar with the trial of Robbie Mook. I'm sorry that you were unfamiliar with that. But here you go. I'll put it in the link so that you could try.
Wait. What was your claim about Mook?
That he testified that Hillary Clinton herself gave the go-ahead to leak the Alpha Bank story to the media. It is beyond dispute that Hillary's team was intimately involved with the Russia collusion story. The fact that you're even trying to argue this just proves. There it is, though. Now, I could continue with more evidence if you like. Let's see which one this is.
No, wait, can we why not one thing at a time?
Sure, go for it.
But it is in other articles as well, like in Political. It says testimony during the 2022 trial of the Michael Sussman revealed that Hillary Clinton approved a plan for her campaign to leak the discredited Alpha Bank story to the media in 2016.
Whoops!
Wait, is this like a thing that's like proved, or what is the? Is this just an allegation made in court about a non-party, or?
No, it was someone connected to Hillary's. It was a person that worked for Hillary's team who was under trial saying, yeah, Hillary personally said to leak this. Whoopsie daisy.
What? Hillary's not even a party to this case, is she?
The guy that's being...
Rob, you understand that right now, I could right now log into my federal court system and file a statement saying that Rob Noor is super gay and that would be under oath in a court transcript somewhere. Like this, you're talking about a statement of a person who's about another person who's not even a party to the case, and I'm supposed to take this as like some huge indictment on the Hillary Clinton campaign? What the fuck? I don't even know what this is from. Give me like what court? Like, is there like a transcript? Is there I don't even know the fuck I'm supposed to read right now.
It is in the case of Michael Sussman. It was direct quotes of what Robbie Mook testified to. You want me to read you more evidence? This one's from... Oh, shit. Where were
Do you have a... No, why are you jumping off the one thing? Where is the...
I mean, you look it up. What, you want to just sit here? Michael Sussman.
Yeah, sure, yeah. If you have a strong piece of evidence, I think that's good.
I'm going to get a drink. You go for it. You keep looking. I provided the context. Go for it.
Did he say...
we are doing Go ahead. Go ahead.
Did he say whose court case this is?
Sussman.
In Sussman trial. Okay.
Yes.
This is Michael Sussman, right?
Yes. Yeah, again, we are doing this subathon today, guys. We had a bunch of debates. This is the second one we got today. We have another one after this with Andrew Wilson and Jake the Rattlesnake. That'll be at 9:30. I don't know how much longer you guys want to go. We're a little over the 2 hour mark.
I still had it scheduled for 2 to
3 hours.
Like we haven't even got to like the meat of what I wanted to say. He's going to look this up the whole time. I'll talk to the audience while you keep looking that up. Here we have...
No, because half the shit you've said, basically everything you've said so far has been wrong. So why would I just let you ramble?
Everything I've said's been true. Every single time we go to it, you're like, well, okay, it does say that, but the context is...
Well, Rob, I had a question. This came out in 2022, so this was after the report, right? That's why it wasn't included in the Durham report?
Well, yes, that's true, right? Well, no, actually, the Durham report wasn't released till after that. I believe maybe 2023, 2024. But nonetheless...
right, but they would have written... Did they write it before this?
I don't know. The point is, it may be included in the Durham report. The Durham report's hundreds of pages. I can't remember every single thing that it said. The point is, there is overwhelming evidence that people in Hillary Clinton's team concocted this Russia collusion plan. Overwhelming evidence. The Steele dossier, right? A bunch of other shit that we could see that I'm getting to. And I believe what I'm about to read here is from the 316 page IG report, right? And it's...
IG report or the Durham report?
I believe the IG report. And what it says is, and I quote, this is on page 97 Quote, this stands in sharp contrast to reliance to the uncorroborated Steele reports, which at least some FBI personnel appeared to know was likely being funded or promoted by the Clinton campaign. For example, during a meeting in London on July 5th, 2016, Steele provided his first report to Handling Agent 1. Handling Agent 1's notes from the meeting reflect that HC was aware of Steele's Brit firm seeking info. While Handling Agent 1 did not have an independent recollection of Steele explicitly stating that HC referred to Hillary Clinton, he could think of no other individual from his notes that HC would have stood for. So here we have agents, FBI agents in July 5th, 2016. Before the Crossfire Hurricane investigation started, talking to Christopher Steele, who was paid for by Hillary's team. And Steele saying...
Christopher Steele wasn't paid for by Hillary's team. It was Fusion GPS, number one. Number two, Christopher Steele had already been doing opposition research for the Republicans. That had already been a thing that had started. Number three...
Christopher Steele was not being paid. He was not working for them while the Republicans were paying. That's not true.
I don't know if he was working while the Republicans were paying, but I know that he was doing, there were people who were requesting oppo research from the Republican Party on Trump. I don't know, maybe it was Fusion GPS, I think was already working on this stuff. Are you claiming that Hillary Clinton had a direct contact with Steele?
I'm saying that this is saying Christopher Steele said that not direct contact, but she was aware of what he was doing. That's what it said. You want me to read it again? During a meeting...
No, don't stop reading random, Durham make this assessment.
The IG does.
The 316-page thing that you're reading.
Yes. Page 97.
Are you sure this isn't the Durham report?
Let me see.
The Durham report is 316 pages.
Maybe it is. I'm sorry, I may have it. Let me see. Yes,
okay,
this
read
is
me
the Durham report.
What is the exact sentence you're saying?
For fuck's sakes, now I got to find the page I was at again. Sorry. Page 97.
Well, just what? Okay, 97 on the document, or like I typed
97 on
the
the left. Yeah, you type in 97. Oh fucking hell! My computer's shit. I need to become rich like you. I can afford better equipment here. All right, give me a second. All right. So it'll be 87 on the bottom, but 97. The office located no evidence that in the conducting Crossfire Hurricane investigation, the FBI considered whether or how the Clinton plan intelligence might impact the investigation. So Durham's acknowledging here that there's this whole section's Durham acknowledging that there was a Clinton plan. No FBI personnel.
This is intelligence related to the idea that there was a Clinton plan.
No, that's not true. He's acknowledging and given reasons why there was a Clinton plan. We can read the whole section if you want. But he continues, no FBI personnel were interviewed. The office recalled Crossfire Hurricane personnel taking any action to vet the Clinton plan intelligence. For example, Brian Otten stated he could not recall anything the FBI did to analyze or otherwise consider the Clinton plan intelligence, stating it was just one data point. This stands in sharp contrast to its substantial reliance on the uncorroborated Steele reports, which at least some FBI personnel appeared to say was likely funded or promoted by a Clinton campaign. For example, during a meeting in London on July 5th, 2016, Steele provided his first report to the FBI agent. The agent's notes from the meeting reflect that HC, capital H, capital C, was aware of Steele, a Brit firm seeking info. While handling Agent 1...
So if you go up to page 94, going back to this, the intelligence community received the Clinton plan intelligence in late July of 2016. This was them receiving intelligence that Hillary Clinton supposedly was trying to start this, to tie Russia and Trump together in some illegitimate manner. When they say Clinton plan intelligence, they don't mean that they've gotten intelligence from Hillary Clinton and now they're going to build off of that to do Crossfire Hurricane. They mean that they have intelligence related to this idea of a Clinton plan. In this Durham report, my understanding is that none of that is ever verified. Durham never comes out and says they were trying to illegitimately tie these two things together. And I think in the intro to literally what you just said, the FBI wasn't even considering that quote-unquote Clinton plan intelligence when they were doing their investigation. I think that was the opening to what you read.
It was asked, what that's talking about specifically, whether or not they used the fact this was paid for by Hillary to influence their decision. But it specifically said, how do you contend with the fact that Christopher Steele is personally saying to the first FBI contact he has, yeah, Hillary Clinton's aware of this. How do you contend with that?
I don't know. I don't know what the fuck Steele said. Steele said a lot of shit.
Careful, because you're the one that's going to tell me that 95% of what Steele said is fake.
That's
so
true.
the fact that you want to rest on this as being the most true statement ever, okay, is kind of fucking ironic coming from you.
So just to be clear, here's what we know. We know that Hillary's team was paying Christopher Steele. We know that Robbie Mook, who worked for Hillary's team, says it was Hillary herself that gave us the okay to leak shit to the press about the Alpha Bank Russia story. We know that Christopher Steele was saying Hillary Clinton personally knows. But you choose
I'm sorry,
to
hold on.
say
It's hard to
no.
run down. It's hard to run down. Hold on. It's hard to run down because you lie about so many things, and I've caught you so many lies. Where did he say? Because somebody's like me a quote saying during cross-examination, Mook said that the Hillary campaign was not fully confident in the Alpha Bank's allegations and wanted to give them to a reporter so the reporter could run it down further and verify it. I want to know where is this testimony at that he said that Hillary Clinton said to run a fake story? Because the CBS News article here that I'm reading says that
Under further question,
Mook said the campaign.
Yeah, that's basically what I was reading. Go ahead.
Mook said the campaign was not fully confident in the Alpha Bank allegations and wanted to give them to a reporter so that the reporter could run it down further and verify it.
It says, what I'm reading is, in perhaps what's the biggest bombshell that tried to this point, Mook also admitted that Hillary Clinton herself agreed to the decision to leak the Alpha Bank allegations to the press. Mook was adamant that he'd authorized campaign staff rather than Perkins Coie to carry out this task.
Okay, so
then
characterization of those two things is quite different, yes?
No, what it's saying is that Hillary herself said, yes, take this to the press. How can you read anything?
One is leak it and publish it, even though I know it's wrong, and the other is let's see if somebody can find more information about this, right? Those are two different things, no?
No, well, they're two different things that have nothing to do with the point I was making, which was that Hillary was aware of this and was leaking it, personally aware of it and saying to leak it to the press.
Is there a difference between giving something to the press and saying it's true versus saying this might be true, look into this? Are those the exact same thing?
Okay, I'll answer this, but then I want you to answer my question, right? No, those aren't the exact same thing. Now, if you were to say, Rob, did you leak to the press? And I say, well, one thing is I leaked to the press because I wasn't sure if it was true and wanted to see if they could help me. And the other is I knew it was a lie. Would either of those challenge the initial assertion of whether or not I leaked to the press? Can you answer that, yes or no?
Yes, they would significantly change the way I would view that.
That's not true. It might change how you would view it, but it doesn't change the underlying the underlying fact that it was me that leaked it or that gave the go-ahead to leak it. You just
If I said that a man stabbed my sister yesterday and she died, would it change your opinion if it was a guy who stabbed her in the street during a mugging, or if it was a surgeon that tried to do an appendectomy or whatever the fuck and she died during surgery, even though she's getting stabbed by a knife in both circumstances? Would that change the fact that she got stabbed and died, Rob?
No, it wouldn't change the fact she got stabbed and died. You phrased that question the opposite of what you wanted, you idiot. That would change the motivation.
No, I didn't. I
did. Yes, you did.
I did. It's exactly my point.
I just want to be clear. So your argument is, yeah, okay, Hillary Clinton team did have this plan, but it was good-natured. They were leaking to the press for help. Not that they wanted it to affect the election. They were just
sure,
like,
yeah. There's nothing. What's wrong with leaking? Wait, are you saying that it's bad to leak to the press for help?
I'm saying that this is part and parcel to that it was Hillary Clinton herself that was aware of these plans to connect Trump to Russia.
Well,
That's been my argument the entire time.
Alpha Bank? Hold on, wait. Is this the same thing, or is it a lot different than Giuliani leaking the images of the hard drive from the laptop from hell to the press?
I don't understand what your whataboutism has anything to do with the topic in hand.
Would you consider that the same type of thing?
No.
When we say leak to the press, are we saying that they're making it public, or are we saying that they're giving it to the? He
wants to obfuscate between the both because he wants to borrow the moral condemnation from the worst thing while retreating to the factual analysis of the
That's not true.
Second thing.
The Alpha Bank story was bullshit.
I'm just clarifying.
Let me
are we saying that leaking it to the press means that they're going to publish it?
Yes. What do you think they're going to do when they leak it to the press? The press is just going to say, "That's interesting."
Well, I thought that
what do you mean? Press can do research on things just because
to them for. Yeah, I thought the claim was that they were giving it to the press for them to help verify it. But
okay,
if you think it also that they're going to publish it, I think there's a difference in the way that you guys are interpreting that claim.
This is fucking insane. So now the argument is, okay, Hillary's team was aware of this plan to connect Trump to Russia. However, it was good-natured. They were just asking the press in a story that ended up being total fabrication and bullshit. They included people in Hillary's team. They were just asking the press, is this true? And then if you read further down the article I linked, DeFlippis then presented Mook with the statement issued by Clinton campaign staffer Jake Sullivan and later tweeted out by Hillary herself after the first Alpha Bank allegations were published. So on October 31st, 2016, after Mook says that Hillary herself said to leak this, Hillary then, it appears she wasn't just looking for confirmation because that confirmation never came. And yet here she is tweeting out computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. Geez, that's weird. They never confirmed that story. In fact, we now know that that story was bullshit. And yet Hillary, who so innocently...
If that's true, then the fault would be on the people who published it.
Let me finish. Yet Hillary, who just innocently, she didn't want this to affect the election. She was just like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if they could confirm it. She immediately retweets out their story. She feeds them the story, then retweets it out. And you're like, yeah, but it wasn't about publishing. It wasn't about affecting the election. This is fucking laughable, even from you, Destiny. I don't
says
know
the guy
what to
who
say.
says that an email that is compiled from a bunch of different emails is basically just a true email with a lot of different truths in the same one.
No,
yeah, this is ridiculous.
No, what that says
There's a
is-
reason why at the end of this, and you don't have a good answer for this. Why, if this obviously illegal behavior happened, where are the indictments?
We had some.
For Hillary Clinton, for ordering intentionally false material to be leaked and to be intentionally misleading the entire public on things like this. None of this was illegal. None of this was broken any laws.
What's the crime?
I don't know. You tell me. Nothing about this was illegal. If nothing was a crime, nothing was wrong, then why do you even care about this?
Can you leak dirt on your opponent even if it ends up not being true? Is that a crime?
If none of this is a crime or none of this matters, then what do you even care? What's the problem? What are you even alleging here? What's the issue?
Well, okay, two things. One, there probably are crimes when it talks about the intel agents that are purposely taking this information because they hate Trump and using it to spy on him and commit lawfare. And secondly, even if it didn't rise to the level of the crime, the fact that our intel agencies, under the auspices of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's administration, right, were actively putting their thumb on the scale using lawfare to go after Trump's a big deal, even if no one's ever charged. Now, just to be clear,
if they were using lawfare, hold on, no, it just doesn't make sense. If they were using lawfare to go after it, why didn't they do it before the election?
They did.
Crossfire Hurricane and all. When was it announced to the public?
It doesn't matter. Destiny, your argument is always this.
How is it supposed to affect the election if it doesn't matter? They're willing to fake a whole investigation, but they won't make an announcement about it?
Do you think you can affect an election? Do you think an investigation leaking to the press can affect an election without coming out and publicly saying there's an investigation?
Sure, why not?
Okay, thank you.
You literally said earlier that Russia could have leaked information to change the whole fucking outcome of the election if they would have just leaked something. But you're saying that the FBI, who's actually doing an investigation, couldn't leak that to influence the outcome of the election? How does this even make sense in your world?
They did leak. Like I said, Harry Reid was talking about before the election that there was an FBI investigation into Trump. And everyone, including, we've gone over this many times, you acknowledged that Comey and the FBI all thought that Hillary was going to win. What this did was it allowed them to have the meeting.
Said you can't live in both worlds. You said the polls were getting close. You said that if nobody knew what was going to happen. You said it was really hard to tell. So why would Comey come out over and over again and destroy Hillary Clinton's chances of winning and then not say anything about Trump's investigation? It doesn't make any sense. There's a reason why there are no credible indictments. Nothing came out of this. It'll never be as good as Mueller. Your super ass back is none. Even the two people that were charged in connection with this were acquitted, unlike fucking Flynn, unlike fucking Manafort, unlike fucking Stone, all these other people who were charged with credible investigations, who were actually convicted and who needed Daddy Trump to bail them out with a fucking pardon after they got convicted in front of a jury for all of this. Durham doesn't agree with any of the assessments you're making. That's why you have to snipe quotes and quote to me news articles. You can't find me quotes in the actual Durham report, but you're for some reason content to cite news articles about it. It's unbelievable to me. Or you're okay to cite an annex from the Durham report, but you won't give me Durham's conclusion. Why? You trust the ICA when it comes to knowing what Russia has on their servers, but you don't trust the ICA's assessment about what Putin might want for an election? Rob, you literally live in 17 different worlds at every point in time when you're making a claim. All you could do is have these singular sentences and then rest your entire case on these insane conclusions like, well, just because an email is cobbled together from several different emails, but as long as those underlying emails are true, that means that the main email is basically true. It's an insane world to live in.
What you do is every time you're getting blown the fuck out on the specific facts, you go in this big interruption tirade and you spurk out and you're like, you can't control yourself because you know that you're incapable of winning a debate on even platform. That's why you have your audience right now feeding you shit. That's what you do. I get it. Like, I totally understand. You're an army of 6,000 that are all dog shit. I'm an army of one that crushes you constantly. I assume you're going to rage quit and fucking blacklist me again at the end of this, as is your want. But what you can see is I'm pointing to specific things and you just spurg out and talk about all of this, blah, 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 blah. I'm citing you specific things from the Durham report. You always default to this every time we debate. If something's corrupt, well, it could have been more corrupt. They could have done even more. They could have announced the investigation early. And see, why didn't they? There's no possibility it could be corrupt. It's bullshit. It would imply that nothing could ever be corrupt because there could have always been more corruption. What we see is that they thought that Hillary's team was going to win the election. They had access through FISA warrants and all this other shit, all of Trump's internal communications. They effectively did what Hillary Clinton wanted to do, which was to take the conversation away from her server and put it on Trump-Russia collusion, which was the bulk of the mainstream media narrative went this way. So
it wasn't. It was the Hillary email stuff, and Trump won the election.
And
then Trump had 4 years to uncover this stuff.
I know you need to interrupt again, but it's not true.
Why didn't any of this come out in the first 4 years of Trump?
The bulk of the mainstream media's narrative going into this was Trump-Russia collusion. After we saw the DNC hacks, that was the bulk of what was being talked about. Instead of focusing specifically on the hacks and the damaging things it said about Hillary that was true, instead the narrative became from most of these mainstream outlets, oh my God, Trump may have been connected. They're trying to help Trump, et cetera, which is exactly what the evidence says that Hillary Clinton's team wanted to do. Now, I read to you specifically, you said you're not reading from the Durham report. Again, what you do is you hope that your audience isn't paying attention and you spurg out and just say a bunch of nonsensical shit, implying that I'm doing something that I'm not. I read you directly from the fucking Durham report twice now that said that the first agent that Steele talked to specifically said Hillary Clinton is aware of what I'm doing. And your answer is, I don't trust him. That's it. That's your answer to it. You keep asking.
Just real quick,
just to be clear, my statement was that my statement said the majority of the Steele dossier is not true. You agree with that. Your statement is you don't believe any of it except for the one thing that Steele said, that the first person he contacted, he knew about Hillary Clinton. So you're the one that's picking and choosing here.
That's not. We know that Hillary's team was paying for it, right? And here's the other thing. I could concede all this argument, which I don't. I think I'm quite clearly winning it. I'm giving various data points from the Durham report. I'm giving data points from trials of people connecting to Hillary. We know that Hillary's team was paying through an intermediary to get this evidence, and this was part of their plan, but I could concede it all.
All of these things are half-truths. You weren't claiming that they were paying to get intelligence. You're claiming that they were paying, telling them that they wanted a certain type of intelligence. Do you acknowledge that those are two completely separate claims?
Yeah, it would be a separate claim. Sure. Do you think that Hillary's team was being kept abreast of what Steele was doing?
Them paying for a company to do Oppo research and then finding out that there might be Russian connections, you acknowledge that's significantly different than them saying, we want you to fabricate Russia connections.
Sure, that would be different. Do you think at some point they knew that there were Russia connections from Steele's reporting?
But of course, I believe that, well, not just from Steele's reporting, from other things as well, yeah.
Okay,
what's wrong with that? Trump himself literally went on TV and said Russia will be rewarded if they release 30,000 emails,
We know Trump's joke that you guys don't get careful now. Now, the Durham report, right, that I just read to you, if I'm not mistaken, said specifically, during July 5th, 2016, Steele's talking to an FBI agent, correct? That's not disputed.
I don't think so.
During a meeting in London on July 5th, 2016, Steele provided his first report to Handling Agent 1. Okay? That's the FBI agent, I believe. Okay, so we acknowledge that. There's no reason for us to dispute that. So at this point,
sure.
the allegation is that Hillary came up with in July 28th was when Hillary's team said, okay, let's go all in on Trump connected to Russia, correct? That was the Clinton
There's
plan.
no evidence of that. That was the Russian propaganda that you're repeating happily because it backs Trump. Yes.
That's the allegation, right?
From Russia. Yes, that's the Russian propaganda.
That's the allegation from Russia, but that is the allegation.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, that is the confirmed fake Russian email. Yes, correct.
It's not confirmed fake, right? So, given that, if
it is confirmed fake by your own admission, it's not a real email.
That's not true, right? Well, we talked about
by your own admission, it's not a real email, right? It's not a real email, correct?
They were unable. They said that their best evidence that the information contained within were true, but that specific email was an amalgamation.
That email was not true, correct? That email was a fake email, correct?
Was that the only email that they used to determine that Hillary Clinton had a plan?
Yes. That was the one that linked NATO. I think they say it in the thing. They say it links NATO and Russia and Trump in that one email. Yes, that's why it's an amalgamation of different emails.
It doesn't. Here's the point that I'm getting at, right? Like, if Hillary's
so that was a fake email. So we're starting the allegation is a fake email. Yes.
I don't know if it was fake. It seems that they think that this was true information.
Then let's go back to it. Let's go back to it. You think that email existed? Did that email exist?
The evidence seems to suggest no, it was true information that didn't exist in that email.
True information?
Yes.
So the email didn't exist?
That it was an amalgamation of other emails. That they were compiling
so Russian... if I have one statement from Rob saying I am, and then another statement from Rob saying a gay man, and I put those two things together, can I say that this email contains true information? And the email says I am a gay man.
If there was another email that said I am a gay man, and they're like, well, this one email is compiled of true information.
No, you don't have evidence of that. I'm sorry, do you have any evidence of that?
Yes,
that email exists that has the whole... Oh, okay, go ahead. Let's go through that again. Let's revisit.
Do you want me to reread the part where it says from the Durham Annex that they believe that Julie Smith probably was, it's plausible to think that she was part of the Hillary Clinton plan and was doing this shit? You want me to reread that?
It was plausible to think that based on the Russian propaganda. That was the point of the Russian propaganda. You acknowledge that that's what they mean when they say that.
No,
it was a logical deduction from the Russia propaganda.
No, they're saying that we believe that's most likely the case, given all the other evidence we see as well.
They wouldn't have to believe that's the case. They're investigators. They can just look and check. They were saying that the FBI should have thought that, and they weren't treating the investigation the same way they were treating the Dossier.
They do believe that Hillary's team was concocting a Russian plan. All of us do, you fucking idiot.
No, they don't. That's not in the... Where is that in the Durham report? Why isn't that there?
Did Hillary Clinton's team pay for, through an intermediary, the dirt that ended up becoming the Russia collusion story? Yes or no?
If I answer yes to that and you agree, then I win. Yes, it ended up becoming that. They didn't go there operating on the assumption that they were going to get a Russian plan. They were paying a law firm to retain somebody else to do oppo research that ended up being the Russian plan. That's different than requesting it or saying it in advance.
Before you spurg out and keep taking it back to one area that you think you're doing well. So again, on July 5th, we have Steele talking to the FBI, talking about his actions, what he's up to, saying Hillary Clinton's aware of it. Correct?
We can go look. What do we have for here?
During a meeting in London on July 5th, 2016, Steele provided his first report to Handling Agent 1. Right? He says, Handling Agent 1's notes reflect that HC was aware of Steele's Brit firm seeking info. While Handling Agent 1 didn't have an independent recollection of it referring specifically to Hillary Clinton, he could think of no other individual in that context who HC would mean. In other words, he's looking back at his notes going, yeah, that had to be Hillary Clinton. Okay? Now, do you think that FBI agent's lying? Do you think that meeting never occurred?
Wait, hold on, wait. I'm sorry, real quick. What page is this on?
That is on page 97. Now, I'll continue with my point while you're looking it up. I've read it like 7 times. You've read it yourself. The point is, if you conceded that Steele would have been keeping abreast the people that were paying him of what was going on, and we know as early as July 5th, he was actually talking to the FBI and saying, I have connections to Hillary Clinton, and the alleged plan that we're told was concocted on July 28th, that gives almost 23 days, or actually exactly 23 days from Hillary. So even if they didn't seek initially to say, let's smear Trump as colluding with Russia, they certainly got the information and said, fuck it, yes, let's run with this. That's where the story came from.
Who said, fuck it, yes, let's run with this?
Hillary's team. They ran with the Russia collusion story.
At what point, at what date are you alleging this?
So the allegation, which you spurred out and wouldn't listen, was July 28th is when they finally finalized, yes, this is the plan we're going for. I'm saying that if your argument is true, they never intentionally sought to smear Trump as connected to Russia. They just bought opposition research. But then on July 5th, the dude that they were paying through intermediaries is already talking to the FBI saying Hillary's aware of what I'm doing, and that dude's investigating Trump-Russia collusion, then it is entirely reasonable to suspect that Hillary's team was running with the Trump-Russia collusion story.
Did he mention the Trump-Russia collusion on July 5th?
I don't know. It doesn't specifically say. Nonetheless, we know...
This is during a meeting in London on July 5th, 2016. Steele provided his first report to Handling Agent 1. Handling Agent 1's notes from the meeting reflect that HC was aware of Steele's Brit firm seeking info, while Handling Agent 1 did not have an independent recollection, so explicitly saying HC referred to Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton was aware that there was a firm that was looking for information on Trump. Isn't that what this statement is saying?
Right, and we know that what Steele was doing was, Steele saying, Hillary knows what I'm doing. You conceded that Steele would have been keeping Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson, he would have been keeping them abreast.
Hold on, wait. This says his firm. Wasn't Steele just one person at this firm?
He was the person that was spearheading the opposition research against Trump, that got to the dossier that was used by the FBI, that was the central linchpin in being able to spy on Trump's
Eventually, yes, but this says the notes reflect me he was aware of the firm seeking info. That doesn't sound like the firm was saying there was Russia collusion, give it to us, or go fabricate evidence. It sounds like they were looking for people to hire for Oppo research, no?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that what's happening is, let's assume your narrative's true. Hillary's team never sought to smear Trump as connected to Russia. They just said, we're going to pay for opposition research. So they pay for opposition research. They find out the guy that's doing the research for them goes, Trump-Russia collusion. A bullshit story, but that's what he decides to go with, right? He gives that information back. He has 23 days.
Wait, how do they know? Wait. How do they even know it's bullshit? What are you talking about?
But it was bullshit. It ended up being bullshit.
Do you understand there's a huge difference between it ended up being bullshit versus knowing it was? But why do you keep mixing these things up?
You keep implying that I'm saying things that I'm not, right?
Wait, if what you're saying is just they paid for Oppo research, a lot of it ended up being this Russia collusion stuff, a lot of the Steele stuff ended up being uncorroborated or untrue, that's significantly different than they went to Steele saying, we need you to fabricate a Russia narrative. We've already decided we've got this Russia narrative. These are two totally different stories.
That's because I'm not saying the former. What I'm saying is this. I'm making a claim. I'm not talking about their motivation. I'm not talking about whether or not they believe the veracity of the information. I'm making a claim. The FBI and the CIA was aware, in the form of John Brennan, they were aware of allegations that Hillary's team was pushing the Trump-Russia collusion story. I provided evidence that's the case. You're like, no, that can't be. They weren't actively pushing
I've never
Trump.
said it can be.
Finish.
If they're pushing this...
Let me finish, right? Then when I have to jump through all these hoops, I'm like, okay, we know on July 5th that Steele was saying, in fact, my reading of it is Steele's first dossier was crafted on June 20th, 2016. So there is no doubt by that point that they knew that Steele's arguments were Trump connected to Russia. Now, let's assume for the sake of argument, they totally believed it. They were like, Steele's the man, and Steele totally believed it. And Igor Dushenko, the alleged Russian spy that Hillary's team was working with, they believed it too. All of them believed this. Nonetheless, it would be fair to say that the people that started the Trump-Russia collusion story that were pushing it was Hillary's team, that they had a plan to push the Trump-Russia collusion story. And you're like, yeah, but they didn't know it was false. Who gives a shit? That's not my argument.
Okay, let's walk through these one at a time. So the first
real
thing
quick, I do have I have a hard out in like 15 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. This will be the last claim that we go through then. Okay.
Well, I got one more thing.
So number one, do you think that Hillary Clinton's team approached the law firm, correct? Saying we want Oppo research.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
No.
Okay. That law firm then retained Fusion GPS, of which one of the people who worked for them was the Steele guy, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, 2, yes. In the course of Steele going out and doing research, I guess Steele eventually becomes convinced that there is a strong Trump-Russia connection, especially because of his stuff he finds with
we don't
Page.
know that's true. We don't know if he's convinced or if he knows it's bullshit.
Okay,
it's
maybe
irrelevant.
he knows it's bullshit. We don't know. Okay, but he finds that, correct?
Correct.
Yes. He passes that Oppo research through Fusion GPS, through the law firm, to essentially to the Hillary Clinton campaign.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the Hillary Clinton campaign, I guess at some point, starts to operate on this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If that's true from start to finish, what is the wrong that you're alleging?
About this story, nothing. You want to know why it's important? We didn't get to it because you spurred out and refused to admit the obvious truth, so we had to go down this rabbit hole for an hour. Here's why.
So to be clear, the reason why we're talking about this is because your claim and the strong claim that you made initially was that the Clinton plan, that's what this whole thing hinges on, was that the Clinton campaign well, maybe we do agree. Then you agree then that there's no evidence that Hillary Clinton sought to tie Trump and Russia together before Steele presented them with that information. You agree that there's no evidence to show that?
There are claims, but I don't see specific evidence that I'm looking at right now. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but
then why why? Okay,
because let
this?
me show you why you're so confused. Because you are unwilling to admit simple truths, and you have to go down these rabbit holes that I have to fucking dog walk you to get to the obvious truth. Because you're always planning ahead. What's the next argument? Instead of just going, yeah, okay, Hillary's team got this information and they were pushing the Trump Russia. That's it. We could have saved 45 minutes. Here's
Rob,
why it matters.
What do you think that? Wait. No, I'm just trying to understand this one point. I'm trying to understand. Rob, no, wait. Just help me understand this one thing, and then you can do it. One thing, Rob, and then you do it. Rob, why did we go over that email? What was the point of the fake email? What was that fake email supposed to establish?
I'm not letting you do this. I'm not. You fucking idiot. In fact, I will answer. The reason was I literally brought up that email to say, even if you think it's fake, it's clear that the FBI and other intel agencies had documents that Russia had hacked. And it's because we had to go through that because when we were going through the ICA report.
No, the whole point of that email was to prove that the Hillary Clinton campaign was already trying to fabricate the story before they had any evidence for it. That's the whole reason why you bring that up. That's why you were saying, even if it's an amalgamation, there's true things of all the other emails. Why would you fight so hard on that point to say that this email is true, even if it's a fabricated email, it's still true? The truth was that it was establishing that the Hillary Clinton campaign sought to tie. That's what the whole Clinton plan is. Wait, what do you think the Clinton plan is?
Holy fuck.
Didn't you just say the Clinton plan was the whole start of the Steele dossier?
Holy fuck.
Oh my God.
So let me tell you what let me tell you what happened here, right? Here's what happened. We're looking at this ICA report, right? We're looking at the report of it. It's saying Russia had these emails. Russia had these emails. Russia had these emails. You're like, all fake, no evidence they had those emails, fake, fake, fake. Now, I'm saying there's a different thing between they have the email, but the email's fake, and they don't have the email. They never had it. And I'm saying they had the email, whether or not it was fake or not, it's not really relevant to the point I'm making right now. And you're arguing that. You're like, no, we don't know that they had the emails. We don't know. It could be fake that they didn't have the emails. And I'm like, okay, let's take a step back. Now, there's this other email you're aware of, right? That says that there was a Hillary plan. You're like, yeah, I know that. And then you spurg out, the one that was fake, the one that was fake. And I'm like, yes, it doesn't matter if it was a fake email. Even if it's fake, they had it, right? That's the point. And so if it's true that our intel agency got this, even if they think it's fake, if it's true they got this, then it's reasonable to believe they had all this other shit, regardless if it was true or not, that they actually had the documents, that them and foreign intel service, that's why we got on this. Now, why
Wait,
was
that they actually had what documents? Wait, just clarify, that they had the documents, that they had what documents?
They had the documents from the Hillary, or from the Obama team saying that Hillary was sick. They had the documents from sources that said that the Obama team was reaching out to religious organizations. We didn't even get to the other ones.
Yes, we know that they have that. They literally wrote that down.
You seemed to be arguing that wasn't the case. You were like, no, we don't have evidence.
No, what I'm arguing is that in past debates, you've brought it up like that intelligence is true. And what I'm saying is that that intelligence is just stuff that our intel thought that Russia claimed that they were going to leak.
I'm going to get through my point. So then the point I was trying, when you're like, why'd you fight so hard in this point? Because you were arguing against it and I was arguing what I actually believe was true. The reason, now that you've conceded that there was a Clinton plan,
I haven't conceded anything. You've moved to so many other positions.
The reason that matters is because when the FBI started these investigations, they briefed Obama, and they knew that this was part of Clinton's plan. So everything we see as a result after that, all the shady doings, the illegal FISA warrants, the December 8th, the presidential daily briefing saying we've came to the conclusion that the reason that they did this, their motivation, just like with the hacks, was just to mess with the system and undermine the credibility of the candidates. And then Obama says, no, new ICA. And then the very next day, your argument is the very next day they'd already reached a consensus. I mean,
you're misquoting a whole bunch of.
That's not.
So in the same world where Obama allows the FBI to investigate Hillary Clinton's emails for 12 decades, he also somehow sneaks into the FBI the belief that all of them should rely on the Steele dossier for bullshit FISA warrants.
Who said
after the election is already over?
Who said that?
This is just, it's ridiculous.
First off, the first
Wait,
FISA.
so like, hold on. When you, I just want to clearly understand this. So when you're tweeting this here, are you not literally explicitly saying, because this is what I believe your position has been in the debate, that you thought that these things were all real things?
So
you said
I can't see
these files released by, I linked it in our group chat.
Well, just tell me what it says. Is it the top tweet that I have?
Yeah. Wow. These files released by DNI Gabbard today are unbelievable. Not only do they show that there was substantial proof that Russia wasn't trying to help Trump, there are even more troubling things that I don't even see people mentioning, like this. Obama's State Department offered U.S. religious organizations money if they supported Hillary. That is an unbelievable scandal in its own right. All of these things that are quoted here are just things that Russia said they wanted to release or leak or do propaganda. None of these things are verified as being true or real. These are just propaganda campaigns that Russia wanted to go on.
Two things. So if you look at my further commentary on this, especially when I was talking about it on channel, there's two things to this. One, they had this information regardless if it's true or not. And when the election was tightening, they chose not to release things, which undermines the argument that they were in this to help Trump win. They would have released that.
I know when you present this to some, I watched you debate someone, you presented this information as though this was all true stuff that the intelligence agency was keeping under wraps, because you quote Brennan claiming that they had intelligence on all of this, but you misphrase it. It's not that we had intelligence on this, it's that we had intelligence that Russia claimed they had intelligence on this.
I don't remember.
It's not that we knew these things to be true.
I don't remember exactly what you say I'm quoting. Second, what it shows is that this was stuff that was at least worthy of investigation, because we investigated Trump's team on far. Why? We investigated Trump's team on far flimsier evidence. You know, the whole Russiagate shit.
I agree. Yeah, that's what the Durham report is about. It's not, no, but the Durham report is not saying that all of that should have been investigated. It was saying that the Carter Page one was probably bullshit. It shouldn't have been paid. That Steele dossier was leaned too heavily on. Not that there should be a million bullshit investigations, Rob.
No, what I'm advocating for is an equal standard. What I'm saying is the FBI clearly showed a double standard because we know that they were sitting on all of these alleged wrongdoings of the Obama Clinton thing and these emails.
No, these aren't alleged wrongdoing. Why do you keep saying alleged? It's foreign propaganda. That's not an allegation.
So what was Christopher Steele and Igor Dushenko? Was that foreign propaganda?
Possibly.
Oh, but
why do you keep thinking I'm defending that?
But did the FBI say it was so important that they had to start in getting illegal FISA warrants against Trump's team to look into it?
Yeah, and they didn't even say that it came from Oppo Research.
Okay, last thing. So the last thing.
Wait, hold on, Rob. You understand that I'm saying that it shouldn't have been used for the Carter Page thing. You're saying no, that should have been used, and everything should be investigated.
No,
you're the one saying. Are you saying that? You're saying that all of it should have been treated equally. I agree. The equal treatment is nothing. That's what Durham is saying. You're apparently saying the equal treatment is every single thing should be investigated, no matter who's alleging it, or no matter what the credibility of it is.
No, I'm saying there was unequal treatment, and you're agreeing.
Yes, that's what the Durham report literally says. Okay, I've never said anything different.
So let's go back to that.
Thank you for conceding that. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
That's been my argument the entire time. You're right.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, I know. You like to retroactively hijack. Yes,
the FBI that has bias that we can see from all these agents, as you just admitted, engaged in a two-tier system.
Yes, as you've conceded, that is what the Durham report says, as I've now explained to you. Yes.
That's lawfare. I win the debate.
How is that lawfare? None of you can't prove that any of this happened at the direction of Obama.
It doesn't. So if you would go back to my opening statement, we said the following: lawfare would include things that were investigations and shit like that, that with the purpose of eventually having possible legal cases. Secondly, we could show that we shouldn't have to concede that it was just Obama. He should be held accountable for members of his cabinet and members of his administration. You never
Hold on. What was the prompt? What was the prompt?
Go ahead, Tom.
The thing I've written down is Obama guilty of a Russian conspiracy hoax? If we're saying that anything is lawfare, that would mean that if a single person was bullied by a single federal officer, that counts as lawfare?
That wasn't.
Rob said in his opening statement that if anybody within the administration was engaging in lawfare or some sort of illegal behavior, then Obama was responsible for it.
Tom, before Destiny spurts out, Tom, before Destiny spurts out, can you read the wording of the topic that I asked you to read twice before this? Go ahead.
Let me pull it up one more time. Okay. It says, is Obama guilty of lawfare, and is the Trump admin lying about the details?
So, is he guilty of lawfare? Here's what I said. We define lawfare. You didn't deny it. Yes, it would be lawfare to legally spy. You didn't say. Then I said
Obama didn't do it. Obama didn't order it.
Let me finish. Wait, we're getting to it, right? I said there's no smoking evidence of Obama directly being involved, but the circumstantial evidence is very convincing. The fact that we know he was briefed this was part of Hillary's plan. The fact that we have this December 9th reopen the ICA. But then the last thing I said was the prompt should not mean Obama just the man. The prompt should also mean his administration, high-level people in his administration, which clearly used lawfare against Trump. The buck should stop with Obama. So when Obama's top of the FBI, James Comey, and top of the CIA, John Brennan, and top of the NSA, Jake Clapper, are engaged in this shit that ends up being lawfare against Trump.
The only person who is engaged in a bad activity here, though, is Comey, would be the FBI. Number one. And number two, if that was the whole point of the debate, then why didn't we just start by saying, hey, do you agree with the conclusion of the Durham report? And I would say, yeah, of course I do. Then we would just stop it there in 2 seconds. Why would we waste our time with you getting fucking blown the fuck out on every other report that you've never fucking read before, just for you to end up at this point of like, well, wasn't the Durham report right? Obviously, yeah, it seems to be the case. Now, if you want to say lawfare, there weren't any criminal charges related to the Durham report. There were no convictions related to the two underlying people. I think they got charged or whatever for the two people that you cited earlier. So is lawfare here just somebody acts in a politically partisan manner? Is that what we're considering lawfare here, with no direct connection to Obama whatsoever, even though Obama's in the prompt?
Okay. So if you remember, I started to speak at the beginning of this, and this is what I was literally going to say. Do you concede that there was lawfare done to Trump, that there was illegal spying and shit? But instead, you were like, no, I want to talk about this Tulsi stuff. Let's talk about this Tulsi stuff real fast. And I literally say at the beginning, I'm like, that's fine, but I want to get back to something else real quick. But fine. Then
so you agree that Obama's not connected to any of this lawfare, right? Okay, I'll take it. I'll take that concession. Obama's not involved with any of the lawfare. If you want to say that the Durham report was correct, that's fine. But no connection to Obama. I got it. That's cool. I take that. I take it. I think it's a big W. Obama was a great president. I'm glad you like him.
him. I like him too.
I understand
like he's
this
our
works.
second black
Right, there
president.
you go.
Bill
There you
Clinton
go.
was the first
I
black
like that
president.
this
I
works
love
for
Obama though.
Destiny's
He's a
audience.
We
great
gotta
guy.
let Rob go.
I
We
like
gotta
that
let
this
Rob
works
go.
out for
Thank
Destiny's
you.
audience. So what he does is, it's the constant talking over, spurging out, like belittling and all that shit. No, what he's done is conceded that the FBI was corrupt and went after Trump, right? And there was a two-tier justice system, which is by far the most important thing. It wouldn't matter if Obama ordered it or not. Second, the reason that we got so distracted is because Destiny does this shit the entire time. He constantly goes down these little rabbit holes. He's constantly wrong. You have to fucking go step by step to get him to conclusions where he ultimately admits that I'm right. And he constantly interrupts. He constantly wants to just go off on tangents and shout things really fast and spurg out. That's how we get so far afoul that 3 hours in, I couldn't even make the central fucking claim that I was going, the concession I was making in the first place. Lastly, I didn't concede that Obama didn't have anything to do with it. The circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. One, we can see the circumstantial evidence that he was aware, he was briefed personally, that this was part of the plan right around the time that Crossfire Hurricane was starting. It was part of the plan of Hillary Clinton. Second, we went over Obama on December 8th getting a presidential daily briefing that told him what the motivation was. It wasn't what he wanted, and so he ordered a new ICA. After that new ICA, literally that day, there were leaks from the intel agency saying they'd already formed a consensus. Destiny laughably claims that on December 8th, they hadn't done enough research to reach a consensus, so that's why they didn't say that the motivation was to help Trump win. But on December 9th, magically, within hours, they had reached a total consensus and knew that that was now the case. That's what I'm saying that Obama is connecting. And the last argument I made was, even if Obama didn't directly order this, the fact that it occurred under his administration, and these were top people in his administration, and he was aware of the things that were going on in this administration, of all the investigative tools that were being gone after, that we should blame Obama. But even if we don't blame Obama, I don't even give a fuck. Like, the fact that I just got you to admit that our FBI was corrupt and engaged in a two-tier system, that's been my fucking claim since 2017. And you're conceding
That
it
was
all right
literally
now.
my claim at the start of the debate. The debate is that the FBI probably did heavily engage in a form of influence
To
in our
help Trump.
election season, and it was against Hillary Clinton, correct?
That's
Because for
it.
whatever weird, like insane rambling this was, Comey destroyed Hillary's campaign at like 3 different points. Okay, the Hillary Clinton email shit, which only came out as a result of a Russian hack, by the way, that apparently wasn't favoring anybody. A Russian hack led to a months and months long investigation that was improperly publicly announced twice, and then improperly publicly concluded in front of the American public, with the FBI lead announcing this, who also is somehow simultaneously under control by Barack Obama to attack Donald Trump, although his attacks don't become really public by their announcements until after the election, even though all of Hillary Clinton's stuff was announced beforehand. Doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. Your entire debate is relied on a misunderstanding of what an ICA is versus what a presidential daily briefing is, why you keep saying PBD instead of PDB. And I'm actually honored that Rob Noor, of all people, is frustrated that I want to get into the weeds of things. I guess that's the frustrating part, when people are actually familiar with the underlying material that you're citing and aren't willing to just take your word for it, because you miscite basically every single thing that you bring up. Whether you're talking about somebody saying that presidential daily briefing was supposed to assess Putin's motivations for interfering with our election, when all of them were just about the security of our election systems, or whether it's you talking about how Hillary Clinton was intentionally leaking things to the press to knowingly publish false stories, versus the Hillary campaign handed stuff off to journalists because they weren't sure 100% what the validity of it was, and they wanted to run it down, versus you claiming that Hillary Clinton intentionally was part of the Clinton plan was to start a fake investigation based on emails that you're saying are true because they're an amalgamation of other emails that we know that Russia fabricated, saying that Hillary Clinton themselves fabricated the entire Russia hoax and then gave that to the FBI to investigate. And now you're saying, well, no, they probably were just doing legit Oppo research. I just wanted to talk about the whole chain of thing because you brought it up. And now the claim at the end is that, well, because the FBI engaged in some political partisanship in their investigations, which they did, that means that there was lawfare directed by Barack Obama, who you have zero credible ties to any of this whatsoever, besides weird circumstantial evidence because you don't understand the circumstances.
Okay, so what you can see is that
do you want to just real quick? Do you want to kids it like Rob respond, and then if you guys will do some closing statements afterwards. Go ahead.
I can make this my closing statement. If you want Destiny, I'll need to give the last one anyways, I'm assuming. You need that advantage, right? Yeah, what this is constantly Destiny implies that I'm saying things that I'm not, because he's constantly thinking where I'm going with an argument instead of listening to the words I'm saying. He's been factually wrong in almost every single thing that he's talked about today. For example, we started off saying, like, do you acknowledge that on December 9th, Obama issued a proclamation for a new ICA? Destiny says no. He ends up conceding within 5 minutes that, yes, actually, that was true. I say, do you acknowledge that he got this report? It wasn't an ICA, but he got this report from the intelligence agency on December 8th that spoke to the motivation. He says that didn't occur. He's then forced to admit admit that it's true, but falsely claims that I said that it was an ICA. I didn't. This is the sort of shit that's going the whole time through this. When we talked about Hillary Clinton's plan and things like that, he's saying, oh, Rob's saying that she had this nefarious plan and she knew it was bullshit and they concocted it. It wasn't part of the argument that I was making. It may entirely be true that that was the case, but the point that I was trying to make in talking about this wasn't that Hillary Clinton was doing something wrong. It was the claim that the ICA was making, or the ICA review that I was making, was doing, which was showing that the intelligence community led by John Brennan was intentionally ham-fisted, putting things in that were bullshit to change what the previous assessments had been, that the actual motivation behind Russia wasn't to help Trump win, but was instead to undermine both candidates and to cause confusion, et cetera, et cetera. And he concedes that the reason that that was so important was because they needed to justify to the public their bullshit investigation that would for 4 years stymie Donald Trump. Then he says, yeah, I concede the FBI did this. And then even in that concession, he goes, but the real lawfare that I conceded at the beginning was that they hurt Hillary Clinton more. He does this a lot. He makes these arguments at the end of the debate when you don't have time to respond. I blew Destiny the fuck out on this, where he was forced to concede the last time we talked about the Comey thing. Yes, because the FBI under James Comey was actually trying to hide evidence that showed that the email server of Clinton thing was still needed to be investigated, and a whistleblower was speaking up. James Comey decided he needed to immediately reopen it and then go through 500,000 emails in 3 days and then close it back down because he was like, I assumed Hillary was going to win, and I didn't want the FBI credibility to be hurt, and I didn't want Hillary Clinton's credibility to be hurt when she's president. Destiny knows this. He's hoping that none of you know this because he knows that he got blown the fuck out in this, and so he's just, well, it doesn't matter, it actually hurt her. Yeah, I agree that Comey actively trying to sabotage Trump and actively trying to help Hillary Clinton may have backfired in that one instance, but it's clear that there was lawfare from Comey directed against Donald Trump. It's clear that there was a double standard that continues and continued for 4 years of this lawfare to go after Trump and the intel agencies being corrupt. He admits it all, but then says, but I just trust the ICA that was put together by Comey, Brennan, and all of these people anyways. I trust it implicitly, and I won't look at the evidence that you're presenting that looked at the actual evidence in the ICA to make their declaration. I refuse to look at it. There was lawfare. There was a two-tier system. There was illegal spying of Trump in one of the most heinous political scandals in the history of this country. Barack Obama was there. He was briefed that this was part of Hillary's plan to tie Trump to this. He ordered a new intelligence community assessment, and then his intelligence community started leaking immediately that there was a consensus, which is bullshit. Hillary Clinton's team knew what concocted this scandal. They intentionally worked with someone that was a formerly suspected Russian spy. Durham's team even claims that the predicate of the whole Papadopoulos thing was bullshit, the predicate for opening this investigation in the first place. Hillary's team got the FBI that was corrupt against Trump to investigate Trump for colluding with Russians. When the FBI used as evidence for that, Hillary's team actually colluding with a Russian named Igor Dushenko. There was Russia collusion. It was done by Hillary's team. There was lawfare. Circumstantial evidence shows more likely than not that Obama was involved with it and knew about it. But even if he didn't, it was the top people in his administration, and the buck should stop with him. And the fact that Destiny, after years of arguing against this shit, that it wasn't a big deal, that the FBI engaged in this corruption, that there wasn't a two-tier system, he didn't give a fuck. You've never heard this dude say, oh my God, this is so corrupt, we need to do something about it. He don't give a fuck. The truth is, Destiny, like all these other rabid lefties, by the way, a guy who said that the worst thing that could have happened was that bullet not killing Trump. Of course he wants a corrupt FBI to try to stop Trump because he thinks Orange Man bad, and that's his entire thing. Now, I'm sure Destiny will go and talk to his audience about how great he is and about how I must use ChatGPT. Spoiler alert, Destiny was using it last night to prepare for this debate. But the truth is, he got blown the fuck out again, and he's probably going to blacklist me again because, once more, he understands that he has to get fucking wrecked, and he has to just gaslight his audience by talking fast and spurting out that somehow he's doing something good.
All right, and
Yeah, I mean, you can go watch my whole VODs for me preparing for stuff like this. There's a reason why I can read like original source material. I can go through all the leaked material. There's a reason why at the end of the day, when it comes to things like Mueller investigations, you're turning out massive, credible indictments. You are getting convictions in front of federal juries. You are seizing tens of millions of dollars of assets from people like Manafort, so much so that your entire special counsel investigations are like turning a profit. There's a reason why when investigations into Trump happen, you're turning out credible convictions in the state of New York. You have credible indictments federal for the Mar-a-Lago stuff, for the Gen 6 stuff, which Trump will never face justice. There's a reason why when you like read the full material and you see like where the trail leads, I mean, it's not even like really the trail. Like everything for the Republican shit is just out in the fucking open. Every single motherfucker on the planet, even Rob knows, is the only reason that we're talking about this shit right now is because they don't want to talk about the fucking Epstein shit. That's the only reason why all of this shit is coming out right now. Trump was in office for 4 fucking years. He had all the time in the world to expose some corrupt fucking plot here if he wanted to. In fact, remember, the whole reason why Mueller exists is because Donald Trump wanted to obstruct this own investigation and he fired Comey. Now, if he thought at the time that Comey had acted improperly with regards to the investigation himself, why did he say that he fired Comey for the emails? It's because he fucking lied. And the only truth that you'll ever get, or the only evidence you'll ever get from people like Rob, are these stupid little leaks that people like Tulsi make just for people like Rob so they can go and find 1 or 2 sentences so that they can try to lie to your face and say that a cobbled together email is the same thing as a whole email, so that they can misunderstand the difference between a presidential daily briefing and an actual intelligence community assessment, and so that they can pretend a 46-page report from some bullshit House committee is as credible as a 1,000-page Senate Intelligence Committee report, as a 330-page Durham investigation, and as the entire assessment of the entire intelligence community. I hope that one day we'll finally get some credible charges or credible indictments to show anything of what Rob is saying. Don't hold your breath. We're probably going to go through the rest of this administration without any real charges against any of the people that Rob say are so obviously doing horrible, wrong things. Like, surprise, surprise, all of this is a distraction. All of it's bullshit. It's the same read between the lines, circumstantial evidence, whatever else. That's why he has no smoking gun evidence for literally any of the fucking things that he's claiming. And that's how it's going to be until the end of time, because it's how Republicans operate.
Real quick, like, because you brought up the Epstein thing, you don't really believe that Trump wouldn't be talking about this stuff if the Epstein didn't come up. Where's your evidence of that?
That Trump didn't talk about what if the Epstein would come
That
up?
Trump
What?
wouldn't be talking about the corrupt, Russiagate shit if Epstein. You don't believe that, right? You still believe he'd be talking about
Oh, I know
this
that's
shit.
true. No, they wouldn't talk about this. Probably not. Not like this.
Okay,
No.
but what's your
'Cause it's obviously
evidence?
bullshit. Nothing new has been leaked.
But
And Tulsi
that-
Gabbard is misquoting the same things that she's
That's
leaking.
not
So
true.
obviously they haven't found anything new.
That's
It
not
is.
true,
It is
but
true.
that's
Like, for instance,
that's
that
just-
same, I know why you quoted that email as being credible, and you stumbled into the
not
answer when you were starting to read further. You thought it was credible initially, and I know because I read your tweets, Rob. I even showed you your last tweet, but you thought that Russian intelligence was actually something that our intelligence thought. I know you're denying it now, and that's good. That's fine. But I can go back and watch
again,
you
you
use
can
these same
s-
things in debates.
You can,
You did. You
can
thought it was
spurg
real.
out,
It's
but the
okay.
point I'm trying to make is
Yeah, I
you
know,
have
and you can say no context.
Destiny,
Yeah.
you have as much evidence that Trump's talking about this to avoid Epstein as I have that you're talking to me about topics we've talked about before to avoid the allegations about you. Both of them are bullshit claims, right? That's not what
I
you're
wanted to
talking
avoid
about me.
allegations related to anything like that, Rob, I wouldn't be raping you in a conversation right now, okay? If we want to be
I don't
honest
think
right
you
now,
did
okay?
so well,
The reality
buddy.
is the only thing you can do is quote 1 or 2 lines at a time, okay, and pretend that you're making some argument, and you see the eyes go fucking wide and blank, okay, like a confused fucking child, all right? If that's where the allegation is coming from, right? Like a confused child, when you're like, oh fuck, he knows what I'm quoting from. Oh shit, the fact that you could spend half this debate thinking you're reading from from a Durham annex when you're actually just reading from the House committee report goes to show that the fact that you thought you were reading an Inspector General report. What does that even mean, Inspector General? When you were reading from the fucking Durham report, shows that you don't even know the underlying source material. You're getting it all from ChatGPT or from fucking articles, which is what you linked me. We all watched you think that you were reading from the wrong thing for like half the debate on half the shit you were quoting.
No, I didn't. I had like 12 tabs up, and I didn't know if the one I was looking was the IG report, which I have up, or the Durham report. That's it. And yeah, I did go, when I talked about Robbie Mook, I admitted it was from an article that was citing what happened in the trial, right? Like, again, like, I look forward to seeing you after you lift the next blacklist, because I know you don't like this. I know you know that you're not doing so hot, and you're just spurging out to try to cover up for it. But good luck to you.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a blast.
I appreciate you guys coming on. We got another debate coming up, so thanks guys
But like,
for coming on.
Mhm.